Hi friends, welcome back to Building in a Small Town. Guys, it's been the heck of a week this week here in Iowa with the weather, in case you missed it. We've been dealing with the fallout from storm damage all week, with flooding here in Collins, an extended power outage, which meant our sump pumps weren't running, and more water damage, and an early morning wake-up call to tornado sirens blaring way earlier than we thought was going to happen, and also didn't think that we were supposed to get tornadoes again, 3 days after we had just gotten them. But I digress. Because of that, I'm recording this intro 17 hours before this episode releases, which is totally not my style, but that's how it goes sometimes. My guest today is Shelly Greving of Em3rge Marketing Solutions. That's our main project, but you'll hear that it's far from our only endeavor. During the episode, you'll hear what it was like trying to find a job after the early 2000s tech bubble burst, what a turtle has to do with the beginnings of Shelly's business, and why there's a 3 stuck in the middle of her business's name. Shelly is a true champion of community and is as hands-on as they come. Her impact is far and wide and will continue to grow as her business evolves. This is my longest recording so far, and it is jam-packed with insights and actions. I know you're going to love it. But before we get into the episode, I did want to take a moment to say thank you for listening and ask you to make sure that you're subscribed on whatever listening platform you choose. While you're at it, if you could also drop a quick rating and review, that's a simple, free way to support the show, and it helps others find the show. Thank you again, and let's get into it. Welcome to Building in a Small Town, where we're talking to entrepreneurs, community leaders, policymakers, and more to find out how they're building things in small towns. I'm your host, Shelby Smith. Hello and welcome back to the Building in a Small Town podcast. Today I am on the road again, although we do have a blue wall behind us like normal. I just don't have my red brick wall behind me. So I'm on the road and I'm in Western Iowa in Manning on Main Street at the library with Shelly Greving of Em3rge Marketing. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me and thanks for making the trip out here to see our awesome little small town.
Yeah, it is. I was just complimenting you on the way in that you guys have music that plays on Main Street.
Yes,
all the time.
We do. All the time. And we also have like a hometown singer. So Brad Morgan is from Manning. So oftentimes you'll hear him singing on Main Street. But Christmas, there's Christmas music playing, and summer it's more vibrant and bubbly. It just like puts you in a good mood.
Well, it's very welcoming. It's one of those things. I had Liesl Siebert, a mutual friend of ours that I had her on maybe last week, couple weeks ago, and she was saying she judges every small town she goes to by their places and how welcome you feel, how much of a vibe is it that the town like makes you feel like you want to be there and stay there, and they have places for you to sit. I think the music is just like a really subtle, easy way of being like, hey, we want this to be enjoyable for you, even while you're outside just walking on our Main Street. So,
yes, even just going from your car and into the shop.
Yeah.
To get your hair done, it just like puts a little pep in your step.
It does. So I don't know if anybody else from a little small town is listening and trying to figure out some sort of an easy way to kind of make it seem welcoming. Like, don't overlook just some speakers with some music. Like,
exactly. And also smelling, the pizza from Brick House when you're walking down, or tenderloins or burgers. Like the smells, it's kind of the Disney effect, like make them feel and smell and hit all of the emotions and senses.
Yes,
that's what they're going for.
Trying to create memories.
Yeah.
But so I said you're with Em3rge Marketing, but that's not the only project. You have a whole bunch of projects, and I told you before I hit record, like there was no way I was going to remember all of them, so I was going to do that one. But can you list out some of the other things?
For sure. Before I go there, though, I'm curious, how big do you think Manning is population-wise? Because I think a lot of people think, Yeah, for a good-sized town, of course you have all these things, but did you look that up ahead of time?
I
or no?
did not
No,
look it
so I'm
up ahead of
curious.
time, but I did. So I had seen on my GPS that like your main street, like that's where your library was. I was like, well, Main Street's going to be easy to find, so I'm just going to turn off on this little road and kind of go back ways. So just driving around your neighborhoods, I'm going to guess that you're maybe 1,000, but possibly under.
Nope, 1,500.
Okay.
Usually we get it the other way where people think that it's a lot bigger than it actually is because of how many amenities, the new hospital and all the different businesses and stuff that are there. But you're right, it is very small, but we're very fortunate that they have really invested in the community in a lot of different ways.
Yeah,
So.
and I will say you guys are definitely punching above your population weight with your Main Street, like without a doubt.
For sure.
If I had driven down this Main Street, had not gone in the neighborhoods, I probably would have guessed maybe 3,000.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
about double.
Okay, so my businesses that we have. So obviously Em3rge Marketing Solutions, that's the main flagship business. We offer marketing services, but then we also, and this kind of is how it all evolved. There's a whole story to that, and we'll get into that here in a bit. But we have Off the Beaten Path in Iowa. We have Ignite, Be the Light, and then we have Evolution of the Heartland. And they are all very different, but they truly are all tied together.
Well, like I said, there was no way. I struggle enough sometimes to get people's primary business correct. There was no way I was going to remember that whole list. But
Sure.
I think we'll get into, like you said, we'll get into all of those and how they kind of tie together and all that. But I kind of want to start you out where I start everybody out. Did you grow up? Are you like a Manning?
No, I'm not from around here.
All right.
I'm actually from Sheraton, Iowa, South Central Iowa, the home of Hy-Vee.
I was about to say home of Hy-Vee.
Yes. My first house in Sheraton was just 3 blocks or so from the Hy-Vee headquarters. And I was in Sheraton when Hy-Vee pulled out and went to West Des Moines. Very impactful to our community. Being a child during that time, a lot of families left. Yeah. Initially, a lot of the families stayed and the parents would commute back and forth every day. You know, it's only an hour from Sheraton to Des Moines. That was fine, but long term, that didn't remain. Yes, Hy-Vee has remained very committed to Sheraton, which is awesome. They have their freezer, produce, grocery, all of that distribution still in Sheraton, so that significantly helps the community to remain strong. However, when they took out leadership positions out of the community, it really hurt and hurt for a long time. So I have seen this kind of evolution of rural communities and was part of that. Grew up being very involved in my church, in my community. My parents were involved in Kiwanis and lots of other clubs and organizations. And I grew up knowing that my responsibility was to be involved and to give back. If you have the skills, if you have the knowledge, it's important for you to be involved in your community. And in doing that, I was also involved in 4-H, sports, fine arts, all the things, because in a small town you can do that, and it's awesome. And so I wanted that as I went throughout my life and kind of figured out where I wanted to go with it. Now, I graduated in 2000. I was like at the prime moment. I was like one of the first millennials, right? And I'm at the prime moment when I'm graduating. That's when the brain drain happened. I was right in the middle of it. I was that class, and go off. There's nothing for you here. Go off, get a career, get an education, do all the things. And so I went off to Iowa State with that in mind. And I had a really cool experience at Iowa State. I went to school for graphic design. All growing up, when I do presentations with students and stuff, I tell them, I thought I was going to be a doctor, maybe not a doctor, but a chiropractor, an orthodontist, an eye doctor, something like that, not mainstream physician, right? And as I went through some of the taking the classes and questionnaires of what should you be when you grow up, they said you're really good at problem solving and you're really creative. And so they started to say, I think you should go into graphic design. And I'm like, what is graphic design? I don't even know what that is, right? So I went to Iowa State and did the program for women in science and engineering, which was a fabulous program because I got to be part of the Internet Explorers group. And what that was designing websites on science and engineering topics. And if you think about it, in 98, 99, that was like very much on the front end. I feel like I'm dating myself, but on the front end of websites. Like we learned coding, we learned how to develop from code, from design. It wasn't WYSIWYG designing like it is today. Nothing like it.
There were no templates out there for you to just...
No. We couldn't have a WordPress template that costs $69 and soup it up, make it look good. No, not at all. So with that, though, I got to see firsthand what engineering classes were like, what those different degrees did and what they were. And I realized very quickly that that was not me, but graphic design definitely was. And so with the Iowa State graphic design program, you take general classes your first year and then apply to get into the program. I was one of 60 that got selected to be in the program. So although I was at Iowa State and it's really big, I got small classes because we were separated into 3 different groups, 20 people classes. It was awesome and fabulous, but I still got kind of to see what it was like being part of a really big community compared to Sheraton, being involved in Ames and such. And so went throughout that experience, but one component of the graphic design experience is you either have to have an internship or you have to study abroad in Rome. And in Rome, all of your classmates go with you, all of the teachers, professors go with you, and so that was really cool to be a part of that. We lived, 3 blocks from the Pantheon and probably a half mile from St. Peter's Square, so in the Vatican, and so that was super cool and like an experience that was so transformative in my life. That really changed the course of my life to experience going from Sheraton, town of 5,000 or less, to a city like Rome with people from all over the world being there. I say one of my most memorable experiences, I have 2 from being there. We went to midnight mass for Christmas at St. Peter's, and to hear all the different languages of people singing, but they're all around the same kind of topic or same theme of Christian songs at Christmas. It was so cool to hear that in all different languages. I was not Catholic at the time, which was really crazy, and this is a pivotal part of my life, and which translates then into other things that I'm doing. But to have that experience was so cool to see that from the Catholic faith side of things, that people all over the world are celebrating the same faith, and seeing that was really neat. The other experience is I got to go to Assisi, which was also a very small town, but at the time, I didn't know the history. I hated art history, actually. I had to take, 8 semesters of art history. I hated it. It was like my worst grade. I hated getting bad grades. But once I went to Rome, I had such an appreciation because I could see it. I'm a visual person. You can't just tell me to learn something. I got to see it. And that's truly what I love about graphic design, and taking kind of my problem-solving skills and the creativity that goes with that, and I can take a vision that somebody might have or words that are on the paper and make it into something, because when I read that or when I hear that, I have a visual of, I can see what that looks like. And so that was very profound for my life and all of that. So another crazy thing, so as I was approaching graduation, so that was the semester right before my last semester of college. And from there, I went to, so I went to graduation, all of that. At the time, the job market was terrible. So this is 2004 now. And
so your post.com, post.com crash, all
yes.
of that, that's where some of us younger millennials, we remember 2008, but 2001, 2002 was similar 2008. Sort of a
yes.
thing, especially for if you're in graphic design and you're website design, all that kind
digital,
of stuff,
all that.
You would have gone from the middle of school being I can freaking write my ticket and get a job anywhere to
yes.
getting out and being oh shit.
Yeah,
There's nothing.
I was willing to go anywhere.
Yeah.
I flew out for interviews, mostly Midwest, bigger cities in the Midwest. I was not intending to really stay in Iowa. I wanted to kind of go out, see the world a little bit. I applied for 60 jobs. 60. Like, this is worse than applying for scholarships because, like, you do the whole thing, 60. I only got 16 interviews, and I was a very good student. And not saying super talented in graphic design, but I knew what I was doing, right? 16 interviews, 1 job offer.
Whoa.
That's it. I was at home back, so, I graduated probably first week of May, and then my parents have an acreage and such, and my dad was like, well, you don't have a job. I got a job for you right here. I have tons of, hey, I need mowed all summer long. And I'm like, oh, are you kidding me? Like, this is why I got a degree. I didn't want to do this. But I got a good tan out of the deal. So, it worked out. So it took a full month before or after graduation before I got a job. And thankfully, the Des Moines Register took a leap of faith with me. And I got a job working as a graphic designer in their custom publishing division. So back at that time, newspapers were still super hot. But the transitions that I saw through all this are just incredible. So when I graduated in 2004, Facebook was not really a thing. I mean, it was like just starting. Barely anybody had it. We had a MySpace account,
yes,
but not Facebook, right?
Right. So I'm thinking about this. So I graduated from high school in 2009. So I had a MySpace account in high school because I remember picking your top 8 friends and picking like whatever your song was that played when you pulled your page up. Like I remember that. And I guess I would have gotten my Facebook page probably later on in high school. So I did end up, but when Facebook launched obviously at Harvard and went through the Ivies, and then it was only, I think you could
certain
only
colleges,
get one. Yes, you could only get one if you had a whatever at .edu.
Yes.
Email address. You couldn't even get one.
So I still had my Iowa State email address. So I did get one fairly early. So yeah, I had MySpace. I know I had Facebook when I was at the Des Moines Register, like barely had it, right? And so that's one piece of it. As I'm working at the Des Moines Register in their custom publishing division, we're designing their magazines. It was all niche publications. But churning those out was like the daily paper. So the daily newspaper goes out every single day. You have content writing, designing, everything every single day. I wasn't on the daily side of it, but we still had, I think it was 81 publications. I can't remember the stat now, but it was something like I designed 50 publications in my first 100 days. And we're talking like anywhere from 16 pages to 120 pages.
And what were they covering? Like you said, they were super niche. What were they covering? Like,
yes.
Give me an example.
So there was a homestyle magazine that got distributed to the Golden Circle, the area around Des Moines, but only certain, I'll say, zip codes and neighborhoods. So it was very much by route, and your house had to be a certain price tag on it, and you had to make a certain household income to be able to receive it. We also had the Des Moines Woman magazine, so that went out mostly, it was similar to that, but a little bit broader scope, more family housing as well. So that one had more like home things to buy for your home, accessorize your home, as well as apparel and accessorizing your body and lifestyle, fitness, that type of thing. We also had Mind and Body, Iowa Parent, 50 Plus, a Cars publication, and then we had 411, which was a Des Moines area publication published once a year that highlighted each of the neighborhoods and communities in the Des Moines area.
And so were these just like supplemental to your traditional Des Moines Register subscription? Like they weren't.
Nobody had to pay for any of these. Nope. And they just went to certain audiences. There was a couple of the tabs that got put on newsstands that were free for picking up. I don't know if you remember Juice. It was also the Des Moines Register's publication.
Yes.
Targeted towards late college.
It was their trendy. Yes. It was like more of their trendy. And
what's happening in Des Moines?
That it still exists and or like existed in some form until relatively recently.
I think you're right about that. Because it made a few different variations. I don't know exactly if it's named the same thing or not.
I was going to say, but it's for some reason that rings a bell. And the only reason I know that is because I think that a few people I know that have like businesses in like Highland Park and stuff like, neighborhoods that, like you said, are more trendy, shall we say, going through some gentrification and things like that and trying to attract young families. I think that it still possibly exists.
Cool.
But probably not at the same cadence that it previously did. Sorry, if you guys end up hearing something sounding like it like falls, we are, like I said, at the library, and the room that we're in has the book return in it. So if it sounds like books hitting the ground at some point, it literally is. Sorry.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I got to be on the development team for Juice. I didn't actually work on the actual publication, so it was weekly at that time. I got to be part of the development, like who is our audience? What are they interested in? And at the time I fit their audience. You know, I was living in Des Moines. I was single at the time, you know, all this. So I was like the prime market for this. And that was really my first foray into marketing because I knew design and I knew the audiences the various niche audiences that we were trying to reach. But at the same time, I saw what was happening in Des Moines. Des Moines was reinventing itself. And this has been now a 20-year process, and it is super cool for me to go downtown Des Moines. I was just at a concert the other night, to go downtown and to see the revitalization that has happened and continues to happen, because we all have to continue to reinvent ourselves. Their habits and lifestyles are changing constantly. And so that was really cool to be downtown as part of that. You know, I saw the old Yonkers go away. I saw, so many changes happening within the Skywalk and on Court Ave and all those things. So, that was a really neat time to be there, and a very pivotal to see that transition happening, to know that big things can happen. This is a big city, but even as you thought about it in a smaller environment, big things can happen to small organizations as well. And so as I left the Des Moines Register in 2007, so I got engaged. My husband was going through vet school, living in Ames, and so I wanted to get back to Ames, and so had been looking for jobs there. But I also, when I was looking for jobs, no one would look at me outside of graphic design jobs, because that was my degree. Even though I'm like, I know I can do marketing, I didn't have a degree in that. So I called up Iowa State. I'm like, so I have I'm 2 classes away from my entrepreneurial studies minor. Someday I want to start my own business, but I don't know what that business is going to be. So I just want to get that minor. And they're like, why would you get an entrepreneurial studies minor? If you want to start a business, just go start a business. I'm like, oh, good point. I said, but the MBA program is just starting here, and it's going to be awesome. They have a night program in Des Moines, in downtown Des Moines, and they have a Saturday program in Ames. I'm like, this is perfect. Nobody's looking at me for marketing jobs. I'm struggling that way. And I say all these, like, struggling for jobs. I was not a bad employee. It's like, how did this happen? But so I signed up for the MBA program, started doing that in the evenings while I worked in Des Moines. But then as I moved to Ames, continued that program on a Saturday program. And when I was leaving the Des Moines Register, a lot of cuts and other things were happening, because we know that people's media consumption, information consumption habits were changing. Now we're seeing, more usage of websites and the internet. We're seeing social media just starting and all that. And so kind of watching all of this happen as I'm growing in my career as well. So the next job I took was for Woodruff Design, Woodruff Construction, an architecture and construction company. They had a marketing position open. It got me into Ames, lived with a friend, and I loved that job for the reason that they wanted me involved in economic development. I didn't know what that meant. They wanted me to have a marketing and sales role, which is very different than a marketing and communications and design branding type of role, right? And so I was out selling architecture and construction services to businesses, going out to rural communities. Fort Dodge I went to a lot, Carroll I went to, and everywhere in between, just talking to business owners and, making sure that they were aware if they wanted to do, to build, expand, whatever, that they knew that Woodruff was an option, and that this new concept of design build was a way that they could go forward, because you're hiring the architect and the contractor at the same time. They work closely together instead of you hire the architect, they design all of the plans, and then they have a contractor contractors bid on that, and there's no relationship between the two. So I got a very good understanding of that in terms of this is what is important in terms of economic development and why to be involved there. So although I wasn't super crazy about the actual job, the things I learned there also set me on the course for where I'm at today. They were one of the main architects, Dirk, he was involved in the young professionals, but unfortunately he was aging out, and they're kicking me out. So can you just take my role because we need a committee member and whatnot? So I joined the young professionals of Em3rge board, which was an awesome experience as well. It was a great way for me to get to know people, especially like Em3rge as a resident and a worker is very different than the college town, right?
Incredibly different.
So different. I mean, you're from by there and
Yes.
You know what it's like,
Very much.
Loved the fact that we lived in Em3rge and all of that. But at the same time, I think it was being involved in young professionals of Em3rge that really helped me get my feet grounded in Em3rge, understanding chamber work, understanding economic development work, et cetera. So my husband... So then I get married while I'm there. My husband starts vet school and all the things. And then I am like, this really isn't for me. I'm getting close to graduating with my master's, my MBA. And I was like, I'm called to do more. And the 4-H Foundation was hiring a new position. So I had grown up involved in 4-H. I knew 4-H. This would be a position that was part of the university. And so I'm like, this, really good benefits, all the things, but I'm working for a nonprofit, real feel-good position, right? So I start working for the Iowa 4-H Foundation in 2007, 6 or 7. And there I was really, they let me go. They let me do what I felt was best for the organization, both to raise money, but also to raise the visibility of 4-H. And so as I looked at it from a foundation perspective, I said, you know what, if we want to be targeting all these other businesses are looking for talent. They're looking for good, hard workers, and 4-Hers, they have the leadership skills. They have the citizenship skills. They're well-rounded. They're hard workers. We need to elevate that and showcase that to them, but they're not necessarily connecting the dots because a lot of those businesses who are not typically connected to 4-H have said, they're livestock kids. They're not really the types of people that we need in these positions. I'm like, you've got that all wrong.
Right.
You really need to figure that out. But the involvement in 4-H was also decreasing at the time. And so I'm like, we also have to figure out at the same time a way to get more kids involved and not just your typical country kids who live on a farm, but how is this transitioning? So again, kind of brought in to really think strategically about how do we combine growing the 4-H program and raising money for the 4-H Foundation to help continue to support the program. So with that, I started some fundraising programs and events for the 4-H Foundation. Also then worked part-time, so I was kind of a joint position for Iowa State University Extension Outreach and Development, a big whole long name, right? As well as the 4-H Foundation. So I saw both the public and private side of that. And that's kind of the first place that I really dabbled in understanding the intricacies of government work. Loved working for Iowa State, but there's a lot of hoops for good reason and good measure because they are taking our taxpayer dollars and they have a responsibility to do what's right. I was there through the extension layoff of all the county directors. That was very difficult for counties, communities, but I saw how that significant change allowed them to come out on the other side better. Did it take a while? Absolutely. Are there still hard feelings? Absolutely. But to be able to have a more lean organization and to do the things that need to be done as people's lifestyles are changing, their consumption habits, information habits are changing, they had to be able to adapt with the times and continue to today. So I loved having that experience, but I told you my husband was in vet school, and so that meant he would be graduating, and I would be moving from Em3rge. I wanted so badly to take Em3rge with me to wherever I went because I loved Em3rge. I did leadership Em3rge. I was super involved in developing the youth leadership Em3rge, so an extension of the leadership Em3rge program, and just there during a very pivotal time of Em3rge growing as well. And I still stay in contact with many of those folks. A lot of them are still in their roles and are doing a phenomenal job of elevating Em3rge and taking Em3rge and Iowa State to the next level. So During this time, my husband and I had 2 children. So Olivia is today, she is 15, and then Andrew is 13. Just had a birthday a couple weeks ago, and so I'm pretty excited that they started in Ames. They could see Ames. They don't really remember Ames so much. They were pretty little when we moved, but we looked all over for jobs. And we were really willing to go anywhere in Iowa. John would be an Iowa veterinarian, was looking for large animal, but we really cared about the community because unlike many of the vet students that were graduating, they didn't have a whole family and a spouse typically that had to also find a job. And I'm more developed in my career. I have a master's. So that really weighed on us that we needed to make sure we chose the right community for our family because my daughter would be becoming a kindergartner soon after we moved.
So the school mattered, the community mattered. Like you said, you were just
amenities mattered.
Yes. So you were not necessarily as willing to just take whatever, whereas some of the vet students, when they come out, they're like, what can I get and where and just how fast? And I have all of this debt now hanging over my head. Somebody pay me, please.
Yes.
So is your husband is he from Iowa?
He is from Iowa. He is from the Willie and Dedham area, which is kind of by Carroll. You went past it on the way here. You didn't even know.
I didn't even know.
So I'll tell an interesting story there. So we met in a class at Iowa State, the entrepreneurial studies class of all things, right? And I happened to sit next to him, asked him where he was from. He said Carroll. And I said, are you really from Carroll or are you from one of the small towns around Carroll? Because nobody's from Carroll. They're all from all these like teeny tiny towns like Manning, right? And he said, well, actually, you're right. I'm from the Willie Dedham area. I said, oh, okay. Well, my mom is from Breda.
Okay.
And so I knew Carroll County. I had done an internship with the Graphic Edge, lived with my grandma in Breda during that time. And so that's just kind of an interesting and fun story. So we met in a class, unique because he was in animal science and I was in graphic design. Typically you wouldn't,
entrepreneurship brings you together.
Yeah, they brought us together from all different departments and educations and stuff. So
yeah, okay. So he graduates from vet school. You are like all the way already on your way with your career. Kind of have decided like you like this marketing thing. You'd like to stay in that. You have 2 little kids at this point, and it's now like go time on the vet side.
Yes.
So
we look at lots of different communities, and it was crazy because all of them but one were all M's. Montezuma, Mount Ayr, I'm not going to remember them all. Place just north of Cedar Rapids, not remembering it, but that's okay. Manning being one of them, and then DeWitt. We also looked at one in Missouri, and we're like, we're Iowa people. We need, even though it was across the border, and
I think that's worse.
I think Maryville is where it was, and I'm originally from Sheraton, so it's not far away.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, no, I'm an Iowa person. I got to be in Iowa. And by this point, I've been in Ames, so I'm like, I've had the city experience. I'm like, I don't need the city. I need a community, a good quality community, right? So as we're looking, I will never forget my visit to Manning. And comparing all of those visits, it was very interesting what the stewardship process is like for a veterinarian. Most people don't get this type of treatment. In terms of rolling out the red carpet, we're going to have a new veterinarian in town. I'm sure that is the case for other physicians as well, doctors, lawyers, you name it. But everybody wanted to meet us whenever we went to any of these towns. They brought us, had us come over for dinner, and veterinarians are a very close-knit community, and so it was really neat to get to know their families and people as well, because it really does matter, the people that you're going to be working with, and especially in terms of veterinarians, you're covering each other for on-call, and so it was important for us to get to know them, but what Manning did was incredible. They brought us together. It was at the Brick House. They introduced us to several other people our age with kids. And although we did similar to, the tours as every other town where you're seeing the school, you're seeing the church, you're seeing the, businesses in downtown, but we had dinner with several people who are now my friends, which is just crazy. So this is 2013, mind you. Or no, 2011, because he was kind of looking at communities before we left. So there's a whole piece of the story I can't really tell. Someday maybe I'll interview John and you can get his side of the story. But so we had looked at Manning in 2011. and started looking at this process. You know, it was a 2-year finding out where we're going to go kind of process, not just a quick decision. My month-long pursuit of my graphic design job was nothing like it was for a veterinarian. And so we got to know those families and people here. And Ron Reichel, if you've heard anything about rural communities and leaders in rural communities, Ron was the epitome of, I'm putting it all out on the line, and I'm gonna turn this community around, but I can't do it myself. I'm going to inspire everybody else. From 2011 till when we actually moved here in 2016, he continued to communicate with me every 6 months at least. Here's what's happening in Manning. Thought you might be interested in this. We're having this event. We're doing, and he would just constantly reach out because he knew how much I cared about rural communities, and they wanted us here. Even though it didn't happen in 2011, 2013, they wanted us here, and I could feel that.
I was say they made you feel wanted.
Yes.
It was not even just the other communities that you went to, the other places you looked at, all of the M's plus DeWitt, they probably wanted you too, but they maybe didn't say it. And there's so much power in
100%.
You know what I mean? There's so much power in just reminding people of say it. You're not over communicating. You're not bothering somebody.
And reach out to them.
Yeah.
Continue to reach out to them because life gets busy for everyone. Mm-hmm. But it shows that they care. And when I heard your story about going to Collins and when the mayor stopped at the farmer's market and reached out to you directly, that direct ask, it was what makes the difference.
1,000%. We wouldn't have been there without it. And that's, we wouldn't have been there. It's like I said, if you feel it, say it. Don't assume that they know. Don't assume that whatever you did on their visit convinced them. Sometimes it's just, even if it's I don't know, just
but it's what makes the difference.
It is. Absolutely.
It's from good to great.
Yes.
I studied a lot of that in the MBA program, and what differentiates that top 5%? It's making the ask and not being scared to do it or feel like you don't have all the pieces, because there's a sea of sameness in the world. There's a lot of rural communities in Iowa. We could have been at any of them, and I would love to be at any of them, but we made our home here, and that's pretty awesome. So DeWitt, on that tour in DeWitt, all the things mattered. They took us to the library and they said, we've been trying for 10 years to get a new library, but, that's also city funded and we can't get a bond passed and all this. So I'm like, okay, well, don't talk bad about your community, but DeWitt was awesome. Although it is 30 miles-ish from the Quad Cities, it is not really classified as a suburb because obviously the distance, and it's not a bedroom community. Nothing against Em3rge, but Em3rge is quite very much a bedroom community. DeWitt's far enough away that it's not, but DeWitt had a net surplus in for workforce rather than out. And so that is really critical in talking about these rural communities. If you can have more people coming in to work in your community than going out, you're going to be on the track for success because you're bringing in other dollars. They're spending dollars not just to fill up with gas, but to eat lunch. And on my lunch hour, I might go shopping. You have to create that environment that people want to come to and spend more time, even if they're not living directly in your community. So what I loved about DeWitt, I loved their Main Street. I loved their Chamber and Economic Development program. I loved their many different businesses, but also that connection to agriculture. And so the company I went to work for was Ag Spectrum. And while I grew up on a farm, we had a cow-calf operation. My dad was an appraiser for Farm Credit Services. My mom was the speech pathologist for the schools and the AEA. It wasn't the same. I was working for a crop production company, but I learned so much, not just about crop production, but really about sustainability in the environment. They use a lot of biologicals and the chemical interactions, and I don't even use the right words, but kind of the chemistry beyond what products they were using and how those worked together to be more effective for the crop, but also the microbial activity and the soil and all of that. And again, this was like before our time. Like that's a big thing now, but back in 2013 to 2016, that was not, and they had been doing this for 40 years. People called it snake oil. People wouldn't believe them. And they're like, you're messing up our soil samples and all of this, and it's not what the co-op is telling me. Well, because the co-op is selling you nitrogen and other things like that, and it's in a different form than what the plant actually needs, and so therefore there is a change in that. I learned so much science that I never knew I didn't know, but what I found was I could really take somebody else's vision and the business that they had. I rebranded them. I developed all of the marketing materials that they need, and I could take that through to fruition. Absolutely loved it. And to work for a company like that, they prioritize their faith. And that to me meant so much. I'm like, if I ever start a business, I am going to center it around my faith. And that is what's going to be most important. Everything else will fall into place. And it has for them, and it continues to at Ag Spectrum. And that's so cool. The cohesiveness of their board and how they worked well together, met every single month, and took the time to get to know one another. That's another ideal that I have built my business on, because it was so impactful and empowering as an employee there. Seeing that and feeling that, even though I was an employee and I wasn't involved in those conversations necessarily, I felt it as an employee, that because of that strong leadership and their commitments to things that were kind of non-traditional in today's day and age in business, or so I felt, that's what I wanted to take away from that. The other part of living in DeWitt, we had our third child. So we had Easton. Easton today is 9. He'll be 10 very soon. So I think I got that right. I am so bad with the ages of my kids. I tell you, I always thought it was terrible when my parents were like, couldn't remember our name, couldn't remember our age. I'm like, come on. And now I'm there.
Get it.
I'm there.
Totally
yes.
get it now.
Yes. So in terms of getting involved in DeWitt. So now my kids are in school. They went to the Catholic school, and we loved it there. We absolutely found our community in St. Joseph's Church and the school. It was a K-8 school, pre-K-8 school, and I got involved. Of course I got involved. As anybody would say, I was like super sad to leave Ames. I was super sad, then when we left DeWitt and came to Manning, because I love the people and I love the community that we've made. And so being involved in leadership roles and contributing back to a community that leaders before me had made the investment to make it a good community. I wanted to make sure that I left it better than we got there, even though it was a great community to start with. I also got very involved in the economic development and chamber once again. So, that's kind of a recurring theme here from all of my whole life. And just really enjoyed, we lived in town at the time, and in DeWitt, and I loved being part of community. I had always lived in the country, except for the time that I was down the road from Hy-Vee, and we had Hy-Vee trucks going past us all the time till they built
their own route, essentially.
Their own route, yeah, beyond the school. So it was really nice to be there. But I also knew, I was like, I'm destined to be out on the farm, open. I just love nature and all the things. And so as we were in DeWitt, I'll tell this story because it really... hopefully I can tell it without crying. I haven't told this story in so long. I told it all the time when we were leaving DeWitt and coming to Manning because it was so pivotal in how my business got started. So you kind of alluded to earlier, being a veterinarian, the cost of school is extremely high and the pay does not. When John first was getting offers, he was getting offers that were equivalent of what I was making for a nonprofit at Iowa State. So it was not comparable to the amount of debt that we would have. One of the things that John had done was apply for the veterinary loan repayment program. He was very fortunate to get that. That is not something that we take lightly because part of that was we have to be dedicated to working in a rural community and helping to revitalize that rural community. So I'll say there's a little bit of guilt there that we have taken dollars to help pay for his student loans, but at the same time, we feel that responsibility to give back to the community and any communities that we're in, and making sure that he's a good veterinarian and we're good community members as well, which is the whole point and purpose of that. So we were very fortunate for that. But 2 years in, so he had a 3-year contract of having to work in a designated area of need as a large animal veterinarian. So we were committed to being in DeWitt for 3 years. So I told you, I'm from Southern Iowa. He's from Western Iowa. We were not close to family at all. And having 3 little kids is very tough. It's hard. Like, what do you pay a babysitter? Do you trust a babysitter with your kids? Like, I did. I'm not a helicopter parent, but at the same time, it costs money, And so, like, we wanted to go out and enjoy life, but, it costs. We knew eventually after this first job that he wanted to get back closer to home. And so, Manning kept coming into our minds. We'll fast forward that a little bit, but he had gotten a job offer from Em3rge, which is out of Audubon. Their veterinarian in Manning was going to be retiring, and they had reached out. This is the other veterinary practice that is in Manning compared to the veterinarian that had originally been talking to us. And so that was a very, very hard decision for our family. But 2 years into the job, he got a job offer from Em3rge. They said, when Tom retires, we want John to take over. Okay, great. And John had to break that news to me, and I did not take it very well. It was very hard because I love DeWitt.
You were invested at this
I was
point.
invested, and I had no intention of leaving.
Right.
I was very involved. And so I couldn't say anything for a year. And I struggled a lot every single day that I knew that I was going to have to be leaving, picking up again, moving my whole family again. But I knew Manning was great, right? And so my friends, once I finally could tell them, so I could tell them 6 months before we left, which was around June 1st. I could start telling people. At this point, I hadn't, but through that whole year process of me knowing I was moving, I'm like, okay, I got to find a job, and what am I going to do? And I'm like, this is really the perfect time for me to start my business, because guess what? This is a community I could see a business starting in, because I saw the things that I liked and knew were successful. And so as I thought through that, I'm like, what am I good at? What does the community need? I had always said, I'm going to start a business, but it depends on what that community needs. But as I had lived all over the state, I realized it's not just one community. It is all these communities, and what do they need, and what can I provide? And I have seen such a variety of experiences. I have fundraising, I have design, I have strategy experience, I have all of these different skill sets. How can I bring that all together? So on June 2nd, which is actually my anniversary, actually I need to back up just a little bit. I had a friend, Samantha Boyd at the time, now Samantha Grove, who had started a business while I was in Ames called Zayo 525. And this is a marketing business, still exists today. Samantha had a little bit different career path than me. She is now raising kids and kind of put her business on the back burner while she was doing that. But during the heat of my career when I was in Ames, she was growing her marketing business and doing a phenomenal job at it. And from my perspective, if you can meet people who have already kind of taken a path and figured things out, learn from them. Don't be shy to reach out and say, how can I learn from you? What can I learn from you so I can get to success faster? And so Samantha helped mentor me through those first few years, and I really attribute a lot of my success to her, because she helped me get through navigate the initial waters of contracts and clients and all the things.
All of the things that you definitely don't think about necessarily until you're in the heat of it. And if you don't at least consider, some of it can end up costing you thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yes, and that's why I love this podcast, because even though everybody's in different industries and has different paths, the nuggets that I can pull from them, I'm like, I don't want to have to relive that. I don't want to have to deal with that issue that they had, the tea story and the flower farm story and all these. I'm working with a lot of these different businesses and organizations, and if I can learn from them, I can help my clients learn a lot faster, because I have such a huge network of people now, and I'm constantly loving gaining more information about that. So, yeah. So where was I headed with that?
You were headed to breaking the news to the folks in DeWitt that you were leaving, and then starting your business. Yeah, June 2nd.
June 2nd. So I've decided at this point that I'm going to start a business. It's going to be marketing. I'm already kind of starting to work with some. I know that maybe Ag Spectrum would stay on with me for a while, and I could kind of consult them. The DeWitt Chamber and Development Company, I'm doing a lot of work with them. So now going from a volunteer to now a paid position because I'm no longer living there, and that just makes it more difficult. And so I knew that was going to happen, but I was like, okay, I already had like 4 or 5 clients at this point. I'm still working full time and thinking about moving and buying an acreage here and gutting an old farmhouse that was terrible, like all the things. I don't know how I did it back then, and 3 kids and a husband who worked, every third weekend on call and all this. I'm just like, okay, I don't want those days back. But at the time, you just did it, right? So I'm like, I really need to have a business name. And this was kind of weighing on me because I was like, I need to meet with a lawyer and get an LLC established and do all the official document things that Samantha's telling me I need to do, right? So June 2nd, I go out for a run. I'm not a runner, but my sisters somehow had convinced me, they're big runners, that I should do a half marathon with them. I'd been working out since I moved to DeWitt, and so I was like, I can do this. I'm like,
I don't run, but forget a 5K. I'm gonna go half marathon.
Yeah, right. I'm just gonna jump right in. I did a couple as I was training before just jumping right into that, but. So I'm out on a run this June 2nd morning. It's a beautiful morning, birds chirping, all the things. As I'm out there, I keep having this saying go through my head, for I have greater plans for you, says the Lord. I'm like, I don't know what this means, but God, I'm already committed to running a half marathon. I'm not doing more than this. I'm like, I got my life figured out.
Full marathon's out of the question.
Yeah. And once I'm done with this, I don't know I'm continuing, but at least I'm going to check it off the list, right? So I go ahead and I do that. I'm hearing this, and I get in the house. I'm getting ready for work, brush my teeth. My husband's brushing his teeth out in the sunroom. Why? I don't know. And he's like, Shelly, there's a turtle out back. And I was like, I'm still really annoyed with my husband at this point, but it's our anniversary. And I'm like, Shelly, just be nice to him. Just be nice to him. Say kind things, trying to tell myself, if you got 3 kids, you kind of know. You kind of go through this time period, right? And so I'm like, okay, what? And he's like adamant that I have to go see this stupid turtle, right? And I go out, and in the backyard, and we're in the middle of town, right, is this huge turtle, snapping turtle, covered in mud in the middle of our green grass background. It's like, what is this? And he goes, oh, maybe it's an omen. I was like, what? Slow and steady wins the race or what? And he's like, well, he said that, and he didn't say anything. And I was like, okay, whatever. And I said, or watch out, or a snapper might bite you in the ass. And he was like, oh, well, I was just saying, it was kind of cool to see, right? And I was like, yes. So we go get the kids. I'm in my dress clothes, my hair's all wet, and I'm just half ready. And we go out there, and he's like, Shelly, we always sing this song to you. It's a YouTube video called Shelly the Sea Turtle, and it is so lame and dumb, but my kids and my husband love playing this for me. Shelly the Sea Turtle is a guy without a shirt on, playing a guitar, standing in the middle of a baby pool, of all things, and it's like, Shelly the Sea Turtle, bum, 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 bum. Okay, so super funny. I'm like, okay, well, whatever, that's weird. I go off to work. Continuing, Shelly, just be nice to him. It's your anniversary, right? Go to work. I had planned on having a phone call with Samantha that afternoon. No plans. I just want to pick her brain about, how she started her business, all the things. So I get on the phone with her, and I'm starting to talk to her. I'm like, what does ZAO 525 mean? I knew she had said something about it. So we're talking through all the things, and she says, 525 stands for Galatians 525, which I'll summarize, says, if we must live in the Spirit, we must walk in the Spirit. I'm like, whatever. I'm not a walker. I run. I do things fast. I talk fast. I do things fast. I get shit done. I am not a slow person. And I'm like, the turtle. What is this? What is this omen? What does this mean? Okay, whatever. I'm all about, I've always had very elaborate and vibrant dreams. And so as I think about this, I'm like, I wonder what a turtle means. And so I would always, growing up, look up my dreams. What do they mean? And what is this? And so I look up a turtle, the meaning of a turtle. And what comes up next transformed my life forever. because I had a lot of uncertainty leading up to this point. Could I start a business? Would I start a business? Where is my place in life? Where am I going to head? All of this. Not to mention that for the last, besides the 3 years that we were in the middle of John working at the vet clinic, I had pretty much carried our family on one income while my husband was in vet school, had 2 to 3 little kids, all the things. And so I felt a lot of responsibility for that.
Yeah, I was going to say you felt you were going through a lot of transitions. You were struck with the fact that you had fallen in love with this place and you were facing the fact that you had to give it up and you had to move. You were feeling this itch to start a business, but weren't quite sure what that path was going to look like. And let's be realistic. You had definitely some resentment around having to carry the family through 3 years of vet school, of having to then leave this place that you
loved.
Had fallen. Yeah. And so of course you were looking for all of the things.
Right. So as get off the phone with Samantha and I'm looking up the meaning of a sea turtle, I can't even describe the things that it was what I needed to see when I needed to see it, and definitely a sign from God, because my entire life there's a lot of other stories interwoven with all of this, but my faith journey, I was very strong in my faith, my upbringing as a Lutheran. I very much understand my responsibility to living out my faith. That's why I'm Lutheran. Deep down, because I am evangelical in nature. I'm okay with talking about my faith, and I understand that. But my trust in God, every single day I would pray about this. Just show me the way. Tell me the words. Tell me what I need to do, because I don't want divorce. I don't want those type of things. I didn't want this bad relationship with my husband at the time, and I just kept praying for the right answer. And God had to slap my German strong-willedness in the face with a turtle that said, listen to me. I've been telling you all along, trust me. Quit thinking that you have control of this. And so the meaning of a sea turtle really goes to say, trust your inner vision. Know that I have a vision for you. Another piece of it is you carry a shell on your back. Wherever you go, home is where you make it. You have everything that you need inside you. Trust that everything will be okay and perfect in divine timing. I'm like, this is it. This is my time, right? And every single piece of that article, which was just a random Google search, right, really set me forth with being okay. And from that day forward, I have never looked back, and I've never had a major issue again, because I have full trust that God is directing me through all of this, that I'm taking the talents and skill sets that I've been given and applying those to others and contributing that to help others succeed. So that's where I've come from. So we move to DeWitt, or from DeWitt to Manning. I can't get Manning, DeWitt, and Ames straight. So sometimes today I still call Manning Ames.
We're still in DeWitt. We're now moving to Manning.
Yes. So we moved the whole family to Manning, and we move out to an acreage 7 miles south of town. Something I didn't think about. I didn't have internet. The internet didn't work from there, and I was starting a business working from home. Fantastic.
And your options for internet are not great.
No, it was satellite, terrible internet. Not successful, but it was the best thing that could have happened to me at that time, because we moved December 31st, and I had started the business by then, and cut ties in DeWitt, although I continued to keep some of those same clients that I had worked with. But going into that summer, I worked from the Marketplace, which is a fabulous boutique here on Main Street, but also coffee shop. So you gotta go in there and see it before you leave. Jamie's got a fabulous small town story to tell as well. But I would work from there. My kids also did a launch program, which was a summer program down in Audubon at their school. And so I would work from their library during those summer months. It afforded me the opportunity to get to know people in the community, because my face was there. I was out and about. I could meet and see people, and it was the best thing that could have happened. A year later, we found out that we could have internet through FMCTC, which is fantastic telephone cooperative. Also, I'm going to fast forward this part of the story. I'm still a half mile away from fiber and don't know that we're ever going to get fiber.
No.
It's a half mile. I know, but we're in like a dead zone. There's like a 3-mile radius that will not get fiber is what they're telling us. And I'm like, I'm growing an incredible business here and you're not giving me fiber. But the cost for them to get fiber from there, a half mile, is so outrageous. I'm like, I can't tell you that I think you should do that because I'm doing just fine with what I have. Honestly, my $39 a month internet bill is fabulous and I can do everything I need to do. So
it'd still be nice though.
Right. I've never had fiber, so I don't know what it's like.
So I guess that's probably better.
I don't know what I'm missing out on.
Well, and that's where in Collins we're less than 500, but Colo Telephone brought fiber last summer.
Nice.
So now that we've moved to Collins, because I grew up on a farm outside of Ames, which is not far from Ames, but like we're not on no cable, no any like, and the internet pings off of its line of sight, and it pings off of the co-op like 3 miles away. And
we're 5 miles from a tower.
Well, and so if somebody is running their GPS on their tractor, like in line of sight, like it messes it up. If the microwave's running, it's like it kicks it off. So, girl, I know what it's like with the rural internet, but I will tell you now that I'm on fiber, I wouldn't want to go back.
The good news is we live on top of a hill, and so line of sight's pretty good, and there's really nothing that will interrupt it. So I've been very happy with that, fortunately, but I think fiber's overrated. No, just kidding. My cell phone connection, that's the problem. If we want to talk about rural connectivity problems, I don't get cell phone service from my house to the interstate, 20 miles.
Interesting.
No cell phone service. And pretty much anywhere I drive, I have at least 1 mile to 2 miles that I will drop calls every single time. So it's like whoever hasn't figured out cell phone towers in Western Iowa needs to get it going, especially in our area. But it's also, we've had all this bad weather lately. TV stations, we are right in the middle of Omaha and Des Moines coverage area.
Yes.
So we're on the outside, all these tornadoes, the Minden tornado, all of these things hitting. We're on the outside of that coverage area and nobody's covering it. Cool. 2 nights ago, we had another tornado possibility. Nobody covered it. Nobody talked about it at all. I'm like, what's going to happen to us out here? We're just going to go away.
Right. It's fine. It's fine. Just
not to scare anybody off. We are totally fine. They have great emergency services here, but if I'm watching TV, I want to know, or watching on my phone, however I want to do it.
Yeah,
I want to know when there's an emergency.
Yeah, or how long you have to take cover and everything else. Especially some of these tornadoes we've been getting are pretty wild, pretty nasty.
Well, crazy story. We got hit 2 years ago. We got hit by a tornado, and our machine shed and barn both got hit. Within 3 months, my parents were part of that Winterset tornado line, but in Sheraton, they were the only house that got hit in Sheraton. Lost everything. So we don't have a good view of tornadoes. Not at all.
Not a good track record.
Tornadoes, you can go away. Keep the rain. That's fantastic. But
although I don't know, I could do without some rain for maybe a week at this point. It's been pretty relentless here lately. But okay, so you
start Em3rge.
You start Em3rge. You're here. You don't have internet yet, so you're here on Main Street, getting to know people, all of that kind of stuff. So talk to me about how that grows. Like when the name, you didn't finish that name part.
I didn't finish that story.
That's okay. Yes.
Going back to the turtle. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Going back to the turtle in the backyard. So I'm like, what is it about the turtle that I have to, this is part of my story. I didn't want to name the business about, Shelly Greving.
Turtles.
No, and I'm not naming it.
Shelly the sea turtle marketing.
Yeah. And turtles are slow. They're slimy. They're cold. There's a beauty in turtles, right? But you got to find out what it really is. And I realized that what is it about the turtle? It's when they finally emerge from the comfort of their shell, that they stick their neck out there and start going. Because slow and steady truly does win the race, but you have to have a plan. You have to have a purpose. You have to know where you're headed. And quite honestly, a sea turtle, I looked into sea turtles, a mother sea turtle, no matter where it starts on land and no matter where the tide will take it and where it goes, it will always come back to the same place on land. Crazy story. My mom was born in Manning.
What?
I didn't know this until we moved here. And I was like, so how crazy is that? Obviously, it's my mom versus me, but I was destined from the very beginning to be in Manning.
Yeah.
I really think. So I'm like, what is it? What is it? Okay, Em3rge. Em3rge is it. When the turtle finally sticks its neck out there and starts going and starts pressing forward, that's what we help our customers and clients do. That we help them to have a plan, have a purpose, and feel comfortable sticking their neck out and start going forward. So Em3rge it is.
There you go. So there's the full circle on the turtle.
And also, you'll notice that there is a 3 in the middle of Em3rge. I wanted to be very purposeful in incorporating my faith into even the design. And that's why the 3 is larger than the rest of the Em3rge. I know it's hard to read, but for me, it's more important that I'm serving my faith. And every single time I'm reminded of our logo and our business, that I'm doing this because God has given me the talents and I have to pursue them and I have to help those who need help. And so that's the 3 is the triune God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit being the center of all that we do, the center of Em3rge. So that's a little bit about our name and how we got to be there. So
that all makes sense. Okay, so when you were launching this then, what were you offering? You know, you had Ag Source. I assume they stayed on
Ag Spectrum.
Ag Spectrum, sorry, Ag Source.
Yep, that's okay.
I think is Central Iowa. Ag Spectrum. So you had Ag Spectrum. I assume they stayed on as client, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So what were you
Short-term.
offering at that point to your clients? Were you offering like full suite of what were you offering? What were you doing?
Yeah. So essentially, when I made my business plan, I said, who are the people that I know already? Because I have a huge network by this point. I've worked with 4-H and businesses,
involved in
counties,
all the things,
all the counties, all the things. I said, what is it that I'm passionate about? Revitalizing rural Iowa. That's what I was passionate about. Who will I work with? Obviously, I'm going to start with low-hanging fruit, people who already know me, who have already seen the work that I've done. And quite honestly, those relationships have continued to this day. We've not marketed. We've not sold ourselves. I didn't have a website, and I'm a marketing company. I didn't have a website for the first 2.5 years.
And you build websites now.
And so I listed out all the things. I'm like branding, marketing, graphic design. And so when I started the business, I said, I want a business that can help other women who have been in similar situations as myself. I had worked, obviously I was a working mother, and that was great. I was destined to do that. I wasn't one that wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, but I knew many who did. And I had seen a combination, and not just women, but it's mostly women, that had grown in their career and maybe gotten to leadership positions and no longer got the creative outlet. Because once you work your way up, you're not necessarily doing the day-to-day design. And that's the part that you love, right? Being creative and being able to see a product that comes from that, not just managing people, not just being a lead of a department, et cetera. So I wanted to be able to empower them. I also wanted to be able to empower the stay-at-home mom who is going to be at home for the next 10 years that doesn't want to lose their skills, that doesn't want to be disconnected. And so if they're only able to give 5, 10, 20 hours, that's what I wanted to be able to do. And that was fantastic. The first year, I had 2 subcontractors. So it was myself doing the majority of work. So obviously I have design, I have marketing, I have fundraising, I have a wide variety of talents I can do. So that's what I started with. And then I had a graphic designer and a writer, and they both worked part-time, not part-time, as a subcontractor with me. So they have their own, both of them had full-time jobs, all the things. And I would work with them. I would send them emails at night. Here's what I need you to work on. They would work at night. I'd work in the day. And we had email going back and forth. Well, I quickly figured out I needed a project management system that was going to work effectively. And one of the reasons why we can be as successful and manage as much as we can from the comfort of our homes today is because we use Asana project management. Phenomenal. Absolutely wouldn't go any other way. I'm sure there are other programs that do a similar approach, but Asana has done it for us and really transformed how we can operate and have so many people working on so many different things. My team will tell you I'm not great at Asana, but I'm getting better. It's a commitment to keep doing better every day.
As
right?
long as someone within your team is good at Asana.
Right. They're
that's
all
all
good
that
besides
matters.
me.
Well, and that's fine. As
right.
long as that is the case and there's somebody there to implement it and kind of hold everybody to it.
Yes.
It works.
For sure. So I have Kate and Laura as my subcontractors for the first few years. And I quickly realized some things were changing. That video was becoming a lot more popular. So, so I start the business in 2016. We're going about 2018 now. So right before the thing we don't talk about, COVID, right? But I'm in the groove of online work and working with a team of subcontractors. Today, we have 28 subcontractors that we work with. They don't necessarily work every single month, and quite honestly, we haven't worked with a lot of them recently because as we were growing, I said, I really need video production. That is a skill set I do not have, and I don't have the time to learn it. I need another staff person. And that is when I hired Katie Sextro at the time, Katie Lang now. She's originally from Manning, but lived in Storm Lake. I had worked with her sister. She had done video work for me as a student intern, did a lot of projects here in Manning that we could collaborate on. It was fantastic. But I quickly realized that video was something I couldn't do. Katie was fantastic at it. She went to the University of Iowa for broadcast journalism and then got her organizational advancement degree, which was really attractive to me because I'm like, as I grow this business, she's going to be able to bring in a whole nother skill set that I haven't, while I'm building, I'm going to need more people being able to do that. So my Asana whiz is Katie. She does a phenomenal job. And so Katie comes on. We do a lot of really high quality professional videos, and they're awesome. And so now we've added that skill set to our skills to our offering. And then, I'm continuing to do work. We're still having subcontractors. I'm like, I think we need another staff person. And so I bite the bullet, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to hire a graphic designer. And for me, I'm very much a visual person. And this was a pivotal moment for me to let go and relinquish some of the things that I had very much control over and vision, and to transfer that to somebody else. It's a whole different skill set to transfer your knowledge to someone else. I did a lot of sketches. I'll tell you, I'm known for my yellow sketch pads, and if I can't describe verbally what it is I want you to do, I can absolutely sketch it. And so Claire's done a fantastic job of being able to translate that. And now she doesn't even need them because she kind of knows, what I'm looking for and all that. And she's developing that now too. Instead of me coming up with the concepts, she's doing the majority of that. So that has been awesome to have the two of them grow in their roles and then contribute so significantly to Em3rge. We also have two other staff people right now, so I'm kind of going to jump around here just for a bit because it's not in linear order. Nothing ever is.
I was just about to say, I don't know that anything ever is.
Yeah, so another subcontractor that I used was Courtney Vanami, and she was a very good writer, also had graphic design capabilities. She is homeschooling her kids, and so had known her since college. Our husbands roomed together in undergrad, so had kept in contact with her, but she was at home and she was like, I'd really like to pick up a few hours. I see what you're doing. I really like that. I'd be happy to help you out. So she worked with us on several projects, but I quickly figured out that she is also a lot like me, that you can think both right brain and left brain. And the next piece that I was struggling with was the accounting side of things. I was fine. I figured it out. I'm so glad that I took the first 5 years of this business for me to do it every single day. Thank God for Courtney, because now I don't have to do that. And I have to answer questions sometimes, but for the most part, she has taken that all off my hands, and thank goodness, because she is so detail-oriented and understands the business, the lingo, all the things, and so she can kind of question those because it's really hard. We use a QuickBooks time tracker for everybody's hours since we're all in our own locations, and she can easily go through that, and if she has questions, she can ask, but in growing a business, I could have never imagined the way it would grow as we are today. Next up, we hire Annie. And Em3rge actually she's finishing up here soon, but has had a very long career, similar age as me, but has had a long career as a teacher, working for Kemper Catholic Schools in Carroll. And she was like, I have been thinking about making a career change, but I don't really know what that is. But every time I pray about it, you keep coming up. And I don't feel like I'm totally qualified to do what you need to have done, but I believe in what you're doing. I love what you're doing, and I would love to contribute. Well, at the time, Evolution of the Heartland, we haven't gotten there yet, but Evolution of the Heartland was a project that had evolved, and I knew that it was going to be growing. So a year ago, I hired Annie to work part-time to help grow that event. And so this past year, she really got to know what is Evolution of the Heartland. And honestly, it's brand new. 3 to 4 years old now. she had to take that vision from what's inside my head, because it's still bubbling inside my head because it's way bigger than what you even see today, to then bring that through to fruition. And so she continued working part-time this school year, and we'll be wrapping up here at the beginning of June and starting with us full-time after that, leading Evolution of the Heartland, but also filling in wherever else we need. So I'm also going to mention that, this past fall, I'm very much into strategic planning and checking in monthly and quarterly with my team. We have twice a week staff meetings that connects us, and monthly client check-ins. So we make sure that all the clients that we have, where we're at with them, and make sure no balls are being dropped. And then once a year, we have a 2-day retreat. Well, quarterly, we have in-person 1-day retreats. Oftentimes, we come here to the library or the Carroll Library, and we all get together and talk through big picture things, rather than day-to-day. But in December, we usually have a 2-day retreat. Back it up a little bit. September, October, I go to Germany and Amsterdam for a girls' trip to visit some of my friends. It was fantastic. Right before and right after I left, of course, when you're going to leave is like when everything blows up, right? Always. During the 10 days around that, during the time I was gone and 10 days around it, we had 9 requests for new projects.
Of course you did.
I'm like, of course, right. And I'm not one who likes to say no. That's like, if I have a downfall, it is being able to say no. It's terrible.
I would have never guessed.
Yeah,
I would have never guessed. You don't seem like a joiner to me at all.
Not at all, right? Okay. So, I'm like, okay, well, we'll get through this. So our December retreat, we're there. And by this time, we have like 15 have now new projects come on board. Not necessarily, some are new clients, some are not. Like, okay, so as we're planning, I'm like, okay, sometime like Q3 of next year, we need to be looking at hiring another person. Okay, come January, February.
Q1, please.
Q1. Yeah. Today, I need it, right?
Yesterday.
Right. So February 1st comes around. I'm like, okay, I need to be working on this. I need to get some people in the pipeline. I don't know what this position looks like, but all I know is we can't handle this significant growth. We had gone to the county fair. We had done a presentation to the Iowa Association of County Fairs. We had done gangbusters work for Wright County Fair. It was phenomenal. Other county fairs caught wind of this. We now have 8 county fairs we're working with this year, which is nuts. That's coming in 61 days.
Right. It'll be here before.
It'll be here before we know it.
Yes.
30 days before you know it, and then it'll be here. Okay, so I'm like, okay, I need to start looking at this. And so this has been a 2-month process, but I am excited that Jessie Shields is going to be joining us as a business development manager come June 1. So I'm super excited to get her on board. One, she understands the tactical things that need to be done and is willing to do those, because I kind of went back and forth when I first promoted the position. Well, first I talked with all the people I knew, because I didn't really want to put myself out there, because I'm like, I don't have time to manage resumes and interviews and all this. Like, can I just like, right. God, can you give me somebody?
Yeah.
He wasn't.
Who do you know?
And he wasn't. and he's, I really think now it took having all those conversations for me to be comfortable with thinking about the fact that we would need a business development manager, because that's what I do. Right?
Yeah.
But every single point along the way, I've been working myself out of a position.
Well,
right?
and that is, so in my previous career in the banking world, that was probably one of the best pieces of advice that I got from somebody who was senior to me was, if you want to move up, you need to teach somebody to do your job. Because if you don't, you never will. That's a scary thing. It's scary yes. Because partly of, as a business owner, you don't want to relinquish the control. But also you go, okay, well then what am I supposed to do?
Right?
And it's like,
but you've gotten to know me here. Is there ever going to be a time in my life that I don't know what to do next?
No. Well, or you may not know what to do, but you'll find something. Like
right.
That's never the question.
Bored is not in my top strengths. Like I can't be bored. No. There's no way.
I get it.
Okay, so Jessie is going to be coming on board with us, and has the ability to do the kind of tactical things that what do we need to do today, but also taking the business to the next level. Because right now I'm doing all the client relationship pieces, which is great. We have kind of a funnel here that everything is getting caught with me, and this has been the whole way.
You're the bottleneck.
Yes, I'm the bottleneck all the way. So if we add another person to that, we'll be able to have more projects flowing through and doing like having somebody else manage subcontractors and others. So during this time of this period of growth for the last 3 to 4 years, has been hard on me because I have wanted the way I built this business is to have subcontractors. And for the past 3 to 4 years, as I've been developing my team and having them as full-time staff members and even part-time staff members, I've had to take a break from the subcontractors because I couldn't do everything well. And I felt really guilty about that because a lot of these people that I work with, I absolutely loved working with them and would continue to, but I don't have time for even the friendship, much less handing off all the projects and all this. And I finally got a chance to talk to him after the first of this year, and I'm like, thank you for hanging with me. There is nothing wrong with the work that you do or what we're doing. We will get back there. But during this critical time of growth, I have to do the things that are right for the business, and we will get back there. Mm-hmm. We will get back there someday. And that's starting to come along. We've had a few more subcontractors working recently. Katie's growing into more of a project management role. And I think as Jesse comes on board and we're able to do a lot more in terms of growing the business, taking on more clients, we've still never promoted ourselves. It is all word of mouth. It is all our network and people continuing to see that. I've also been one that doesn't, although I'm in marketing, I'm not one that likes to tout what we do. I'm very humble about that. And a lot of people, they're like, oh, you're the vet's wife, right? Like you stay at home, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Think that because like I got enough on my plate. That's totally fine. And what do you actually do? Like, what are you marketing? And you're in rural Iowa, so they think marketing is like grain marketing. No, totally different.
Right.
So as I am growing, a really good talent that Claire and Katie have, and they're so good at doing, is to be able to tell our story. And this is why I so badly wanted to, when you asked me to be on your podcast, I was like, no way. Like, I actually get to tell this story because I've never been able to like fully tell the story because I want to tell the story about who I am and how I've gotten here because it wasn't like it just happened overnight.
Well, but that is the story. That
It
is
is
the story. And
yes.
It's not, I've built this business and like, here's all the things that we do and here's where we're still growing and here's where we're still going. It's not that. It's like what all led you to these bajillion different projects that you're doing. Right. That all makes it up. And it also, you don't need to tell the here's where we're going because it becomes very obvious when you listen to the whole story.
Right.
It will grow into whatever it grows into.
Right. And when you have that passion underlying, and I would say this for any of our clients, when you have that passion underlying, people can see it and feel it when they interact with you. You don't have to tell them that whole background story and all this that we've talked about. They can feel your energy around it. And what has driven us from the beginning is revitalizing rural Iowa. And however that looks is what we need to follow. That's the North Star. That's what we need to be shooting for. And however we need to adapt and evolve to make that happen is what we're going to do. Being able to change quickly, like I told you, I worked in government, doesn't change quickly. Right. Having faith that it will happen. In its perfect and divine timing. All these things along the way, I was very open to take to heart and really keep that at my core as to what's driving us because all the other things can shift and change. Because I don't want to have happen what happened to newspapers or radio, traditional media, for those to go away because I was so set on this is our end product, this is what I'm building, this is what I'm doing, not open to other opportunities that are popping up along the way.
Right. Not being able to pivot, being able to be open to the possibility of having to pivot, which total aside, but I had a long conversation early this week and it kind of blew my mind the way I had never heard pivot in a business sense articulated this way. And I feel like this might resonate with you. Don't forget that one foot is planted.
For sure.
Whenever you're pivoting a business, don't forget one foot is planted.
I wasn't a great basketball player. I wasn't great at pivoting, but I can tell you I am today. Yeah. I keep that foot down.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
Again, same thing with all of this as you're like hiring people and doing all that. Like you still have one foot planted in what made this business into what it was. But you have to pivot into, like you said, relinquishing control of certain things to be able to do what you need to do.
Right.
And all of that. But yeah, like I said, total aside. And that was a completely different conversation earlier in the week. But I was just like, oh my gosh, that was such a good articulation of pivot.
Well, speaking of pivot, I'm going to jump into the businesses that we've developed and all that because this is key to that.
So So talk to me a little bit about, you said like your business has definitely grown word of mouth or whatever. When these people are coming to you, what are they asking you for? Do they know what they're asking for? Because that's where, no offense to a lot of like rural businesses or a lot of businesses just in general, like a lot of them, I look at them and I go, you have nobody on your marketing side that knows what they're doing. like none whatsoever.
Or they don't have time for it because they're a 1-person or 5-person shop.
Yep,
Just like me, I didn't have somebody to market my business because I was busy working on my business, even though I do marketing.
Yes, all totally understand. And my husband's landscaping business was one of those, and then I took it. But so, like, what are they? Yeah. Are they just coming being like,
so what we joke about is, oh, you want a brochure? Yeah. Let me tell you something. Yeah. Because a lot of times it's a tactical thing that they want. A brochure, a website. Oh, can you do social media? They want it to look pretty. Well, this is like before Canva, like Canva, like everything's at your fingertips in terms of you can do this. Can you do it well, though? Do you really understand the principles of design? And that's where we come in. We really understand branding and design, but we also know that you're a small business and you can't keep paying us to do that because you've got to focus on growing your business in a lot of other ways. So empowering businesses, organizations, et cetera, to be able to do it themselves is something we really pride ourselves in. We don't want to lock you into a contract. Mm-hmm. We know what it's like as a small business ourselves. It hurt when I had to pay $3,000 for my website. I'm like, but this is what I do, and I'm asking other people to do it. I need to do that, yes, but know why you're doing it and get through that. But then we can manage it ourselves and not, have to go ongoing. So we've got to be able to empower those businesses or organizations at whatever level they want to be involved in, that they can do that. So a lot of them would come to us and say, I want a brochure. I'm like, do you really need a brochure? Tell me, how are you going to distribute this? Who's your audience? Who's all the things?
Who is going to be reading said brochure, my friend?
So I can tell you, we're really good designers, but we're really good strategists, and we're really good marketers. And so when we think about it that way, I help shift the conversation that we're not just here to create a new piece for you or a new website for you, but we're going to help you re-envision your organization, your business, because what we want to make sure happens is that when we get to the end result, this is something that you're going to be proud of and could stand for years and years and years. And not every piece is going to be like that, but if you don't start with a good foundation of who you are and being able to tell that well, we can't do our best job of doing that. Do we do one-off logos and brochures? Yes. Is that our best use of time? Absolutely not.
No, and those typically are not necessarily going to be your repeat customers either.
Agreed.
They're not your, that's not your long-term relationship contract sort of a situation.
Agreed. And I would say that is how our business, in terms of the marketing side of things, is evolving. We have a lot more contract clients now that are, some people that have relationships with us that have been there since the very beginning of when we started. And we're continuing to do work with them, even if we aren't on a strategy every single month kind of contract with them. We're still doing ongoing work with them as things come up. But what we're seeing is a transition and shift to more companies who are saying, we need you part of our team ongoing, because just like I've had to adapt and pivot, they do too. And so from a marketing strategy standpoint, having marketing strategy tied in with strategic planning and understanding how are we going to achieve the high level visionary things for our organization, it's telling our story most effectively. And so the organizations that we're working with, we work with hospitals, we've worked with libraries, with schools. What I call our client, our typical client, is the fabric of rural Iowa. If you find that, and not to say we've worked with a lot of clients outside of Iowa, in cities in Iowa, all of that, but really our bread and butter is here because we understand the integrations between rural businesses, Main Street businesses, their chambers and economic development and what they're trying to achieve, and how critical it is that a hospital is successful, that a school is successful, that a library is successful, and tourism in the area. What's attracting people here? Because if you think about communities and placemaking, it's no different than the sales cycle for any other product or business or service, because you have the awareness and consideration and knowledge. Do they even know that we exist in rural Iowa? No. Okay, now they know Iowa exists, and it's not Ohio, right?
Thank you, Caitlin Clark.
Yes. Thank goodness. Iowa, here we are. And I'm a big Cyclone. I'm sure you are too, but thank goodness for Caitlin Clark, right? Go. Okay, so that awareness, they know we exist, but do they really know who we are? I would say right now is our best time. We have looked back at kind of the history. When I said I was one of the first people of that brain drain, I'm one of the oldest millennials, right? And to look at that now is our time. You've gone off, you've gotten your education, you've done all the worldly things. Come back, start your business here, or contribute to a transitioned business here, because what hasn't changed in rural Iowa is community, that sense of support and connection, whether you're going to church or part of schools or part of Little League club, and other clubs and organizations. You feel that support, and people want to support you in growing your business, and want to get to know you for who you are, not just because of your business, but they care for you as a person as well and want you and your family to be successful. So as I think about that knowledge, how do you do that, right? How do we tell that story? I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit. So consideration, why would I come here? Why did I choose Manning versus any of those other places? Why did I choose DeWitt? What is it about these communities, even Ames? Why are you choosing those? And so those are the types of things that I'm thinking about as I'm helping to market communities and all of the businesses and organizations that make those up. What is it that we can do to contribute back? It's going to take a strategic approach. It's going to take empowering the right people, and it's going to take a belief, an unwavering belief that we can do this. Just like I said, like Ron Reichel, he was that leader that even though people were like naysayers to him when this all started, we're a rural community. We don't need to do that. We don't need to market ourselves. Well, guess what? For the last 5 to 10 years, everybody's talking about Manning in the state. Everybody knows where Manning is. Everyone knows that Manning is a tiny community that gets things done. How can we be like Manning? And now we can say so many other communities are doing that, and it's really incredible. So that brings me to one of my first, my dream was to work with communities, right? But I didn't have super experience with this. Yes, DeWitt Chamber and Economic Development, but actually working with a city. And I'm like, I told you, government, don't want to do that. Public meetings, everything gets recorded.
Public meetings, budget discussions, personnel capacity, yeah.
So the first community that took a leap of faith and believed in me shortly after I moved here was Coon Rapids. And I'll never forget it because they had heard, some of my family members had heard them saying that on the radio that they were looking for a community development person. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is what I do. And they wouldn't have to hire somebody right away, but could I work with them? So I reached out and I met with them, and a city council person and then their city manager. And it was really cool to hear where they were at. Coon Rapids is only 20 miles down the road from Manning, not too far away, very similar in size, but they had a similar situation happen that happened in Sheraton. When Garth Seed pulled out of Coon Rapids, they were a corn community. They were very much an agricultural community.
They still are. They still have corn statues everywhere.
100%. Embrace your history, right?
Yes.
And they still have a corn processor and all that. So when I went and started working with them, overcoming the fact that we are Hy-Vee, we are a Hy-Vee community. We are a Garst community. We are a seed corn community. We're much more than that. I was part of those initial conversations, and to get them designated as a Great Places community, really worked on the strategy. What's the strategy behind that? Fast forward a little bit, they hired, after the work that they had done with me, they hired Katie Mason. She became their community I don't know her exact title. It doesn't really matter. Katie's phenomenal, does all the things for Coon Rapids. We'll call her the champion. But she shared with me not too long ago that the 5-year plan that we developed back then has been completed, and it set them forward to do their next strategic plan, so that all the things that we had identified 5 years ago and had a vision for, that it wasn't me that had the total vision, it was their community members coming together and me pulling that together, put that together. They accomplished that full 5-year plan and are now on their next iteration of their strategic plan. They have had significant growth and development on their main street. They have figured out how to utilize White Rock Conservancy as a place for tourism and capitalize on that growth with the community, whereas before they were seen as very separate. And so they're making huge strides, and it's been amazing to watch. I was just involved in the very front end, and it took their entire community and people stepping up and leading to make it happen. But it has been so cool to watch.
So tell me if I'm wrong here, but if I step back and I look at the role that you guys play with the underlying thought of, I just want to empower, revitalize rural Iowa, or just rural spaces in general, let's not necessarily say Iowa, you are kind of bridging the gap or filling the need of these smaller communities that don't necessarily have the personnel resources. Maybe they don't understand the desire of the marketing.
And why would you?
Yes.
Why would
But
we
you
market?
are-
Why
yes.
would we market our rural community beyond our rural community?
Right. But even so, like the communities and the small businesses, you are essentially a good little bridge between, hey, we should probably be doing something about this marketing thing, but like I don't think we necessarily need to hire a full-time person to be running our marketing and strategy. And you are kind of coming in, giving them an overall strategy, showing them, hey, look what you can do if you just have a little bit of strategy, a little bit of marketing. And then, like you said, it's not as if you are trying to lock them into these long-term relationships necessarily. Right. It's showing them the power of it so that then they can be like, okay, maybe we do need to allocate resources to this and hire someone like Katie a few years down the road.
Yes.
Even
there are also a lot of marketing companies in these rural communities. I want them to work with them.
Yeah.
But I want them to understand the depth and gravity of a strategic plan. I'm working with Calhoun County Economic Development right now in a couple of the communities there, as well as a hospital there. And having them understand the depth of that, I don't feel like we have to own that image and likeness and the brand identity for them. Support your local marketing companies. They can do that. That's phenomenal. But because of the experiences that I've had across our entire state,
you're the one able to facilitate and start the conversation.
Yes.
It's a very interesting niche.
Yeah.
very interesting.
And
like I said, tell me if I'm wrong, but that's just like 10,000 foot level the way I see it. I was like, oh, that's kind of...
Yeah.
And you have literally unlimited. That's why, like you said, there's no reason for you to hold on to these and be like, no, these are all my clients and hoard them. Like you have unlimited.
We can't do it ourselves.
No way.
And that's why when I first saw your podcast, I told you right away, like when I got your email, I was folding laundry, trying to buy some time. And I was like, this came at a perfect time. And I started listening to it and I stopped listening and I sent you a message. I was like, we need more people like you. We need people telling this story because it is really hard to experience. Like it's hard to market this because it's not tangible. Well, it's not big and flashy.
And they're also so unique and like what the advantages of one place versus the other. Like they're not all the same. And it's also not, you can't boil it down to population. You can't boil it down to like, it's too complex and complicated, but the conversation does need to be had. So that's where, yes, you're a marketing firm, but I would say you're more of a facilitator of strategy and conversation.
Yeah.
Is the way
consulting
I would see
strategy. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Veiled in marketing, shall we say?
Yeah. So one thing that I realized, so as we were working with Coon Rapids, I mean, it was a 1 to 2 year long process. I'm like, this is too long. We don't have time for this to happen, to wait on the next city council meeting to do that. And no offense to Coon Rapids, we got done what we needed to get done there.
Well, and
absolutely.
I was going to say, you could name any city. It doesn't matter. Like, yes, this was Coon Rapids was the working example, but had you gone to any community and tried to do this, it would have been the same.
Right. And changing people's mindsets. I'm like, we have to work faster or we're going to miss our chance here in Iowa to elevate these 90 other rural counties. And guess what? Most of those counties don't have the vision, or communities don't have the vision, don't have the budget, don't have the wherewithal. And I'm like, we have to be able to activate sooner.
They all know they have the problem, though.
Yes,
and that's the
100%.
Thing. Like, they know they have the problem, and that's...
And our state has recognized that and invested as well. So as I've been doing this, Empower Rural Iowa has come about, and all these other support mechanisms the state is investing in. And that's why I say it's never been more aligned than it is today, that our state understands the value of rural Iowa and are investing in it, both in terms of businesses, main streets, tourism, and marketing what Iowa has to offer. This year at the Iowa Tourism Conference was the first year, and I've been barking up this tree for 4 years now, saying we have to lead with ag tourism. We aren't Iowa without agriculture. And we need to be leading with that and leveraging that because nobody else does it as well across the entire world as we do right here in Iowa. And that's what differentiates our rural communities and our state from everywhere else.
It's a low-hanging it's again, your low-hanging fruit thing that you were talking about earlier. there is, and we had this conversation offline, there is so much more to Iowa than the ag piece, and rural Iowa than the ag piece, but it is such low-hanging fruit. Like such low-hanging fruit. So, yeah.
But when I think about California and I think about Silicon Valley isn't just Silicon Valley. It's all the other things. But what you first think about is that tech job, right?
Right.
But now quality of life is leading jobs. We just went through COVID. People are living on top of each other, getting sick like crazy. Here in Iowa, we didn't have as much of that problem because we have open spaces. We're distancing naturally, and we have a lot of the natural resources that are not, I'll say, overused and trash and pollution and all the other problems that many other places have. And so, I really think about that in terms of how can we elevate what Iowa has to offer and continue to do that, because it does go beyond agriculture. But our land, if we think about it in terms of natural resources, it's the root of all we do.
Right.
And then there's so much more beyond that.
Yes, it is the gateway. It's the gateway into the rest of the conversation.
Sure.
I suppose. But okay, so evolution of the heartland. I really want to talk to you about that.
Yep, let's get there. I'm gonna go with OBP first.
Go.
So in dealing with Coon Rapids, I was like, we need to do a video, and we started to kind of market this to a few other communities. And in dealing with the chamber, they're like, we have to only feature chamber members. This isn't Coon. We can only feature chamber members, and we have to feature all of them. And I'm like, well, guess what? We don't have time. Nobody's going to watch all the things.
Sorry.
And so we came up with this idea before influencers were a thing. So 3 to 4 years ago, off the beaten path in Iowa. And I have a remote team. So I would bring our team out to these rural communities. I'm like, we've got to see, where are we going to go eat? What are we going to go shop and do? Where are we going to stay? And let's make a video feature from it. Katie's phenomenal. She loved broadcast journalism. I'm like, you're going to lead this, and we're going to go gangbusters over it. So I did the first one to kind of show and I'm not one that likes to be on camera so much. And I'm not great at like the video editing thing, but I'm like, I'm going to put all the pieces together. You put this first one together, and that's going to be like your guide, and you make it your own. And so that's what we started. Well, last year, Katie had a baby, and so she was like, really, I don't really want to travel that much, number one. And number two, I'm pregnant, so I really don't want to be on camera if possible. Plus, we were growing in a lot of other ways. I'm like, totally fine. Let's repurpose the content we have. We have so much content from all these communities. I'm like, let's repurpose this. At the same time, influencers and tourism influencers have exploded. I'm like, we were on to something here. We were not getting paid for any of that. Mm-hmm. We figured out the first year that we did Off the Beaten Path, I think we featured 11 different communities. It cost us $10,000. It cost me $10,000 to do it. But I had to be able to show them, this is how you do it differently. Mm-hmm. This is how we showcase these rural communities. We don't have all the flashy things, but it's still a great place to come visit, stay overnight, spend a weekend. It's affordable, and we did that all right before COVID. So you can go out on YouTube and see our Off the Beaten Path in Iowa videos. Search Off the Beaten Path in Iowa. It'll come up. We have a playlist of all the different places we've gone. And now today we do charge for those for us to come out and do them, because we all have families and we all, we're taking time away, and it costs to do that. So that's Off the Beaten Path in Iowa. So as I'm going there, I'm still thinking, like, what is it about these rural communities that they don't have necessarily the vision of why would you market beyond your community? We wouldn't necessarily put big budgets into place here. At the same time, I'm like, there's a lot happening in Iowa. How can we market these things together? And I said, we've got to lead with ag tourism. So that's what I did, is I created Evolution of the Heartland, which was something that I was very purposeful and intentional not to just lead with Iowa, because I truly believe this is a whole Midwest kind of thing. We're going to start and lead with Iowa, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're going to end up growing this beyond just Iowa. I want Iowa to be the center of the next Silicon Valley. They've coined it Silicon Prairie.
Silicon Prairie.
Silicon Prairie is right where it's at, because there is innovation and technology happening here, but it's not about the jobs. It's about the quality of life. And that's the difference between Silicon Valley and Silicon Prairie. It's about quality of life, and then the entrepreneurial ideas and spirit that comes from that, because you are opened up so much more to experience life to its fullest, not be so focused on career, job, and then hit a glass ceiling that you can't continue to grow, because we have a lot of really incredible national and international businesses that come from these back roads that you don't even know about. So what I wanted to do with Evolution of the Heartland is create an experience that allowed people to really experience what Iowa has to offer, as opposed to just thinking about the flashy glitz and glamour of all these like touristy places. We don't have that here. But what we do have is really special, but you have to take the time to experience it. So looking at it from a multimedia standpoint, how can we showcase these rural communities on a limited or lesser budget that impacts the rural community, but we can market them together? So some things I thought of or that inspired me. RAGBRAI, number one. How can we market these things together and have them be day-long experiences? Because initially you don't have to spend more than a day. And you can see a lot of these different communities all in one day. We call it the hub and spoke concept. You come and stay overnight here, but you go to all these little communities, and that's what we love. I was also inspired by Leadership Iowa. I did the Leadership Iowa program in 2011-12, best class ever. If you're an LI alum, you get this. So in that experience, we spent 3 days each month learning an immersive topic about the state of Iowa in a community in Iowa. Absolutely loved it because it really gave you a deep experience about what it is that community and that industry has to offer in Iowa. And so I wanted to build the model similar to that these immersive experiences go beyond what you could do on a day-to-day basis. You learn from the business owner and all of the people that make that business happen, but you get an in-depth or more immersive tour than you would if you got to tour some of these places. Many of these places you can't tour on a day-to-day basis. And that's what makes it hard to say it's ag tourism focused, because one, we are featuring more than just agriculture. It's some of these businesses and entrepreneurship, but it's also the main streets. It's also the restaurants, and it's also that culture that you start to see. So what started as a one-day event in Manning and Audubon the last 2 years, now this year is our first year that we're beginning to scale that. We're in 4 communities this year. We are going to be in DeWitt. Of course, I've got to go back home, right? And if you didn't see me, if you're listening to this podcast, I did it in quotes because all of these places are home to me. Sheraton, Ames, DeWitt, Manning now. And really, so we're going to DeWitt July 25th. And then September 12th, we're going to Stanton. September 26th, we're going to Coon Rapids. And October 3rd, we're going to Manning. So the Manning one will be different than what we've had before. I really wanted to break down all barriers. I wanted communities to partner. You don't have nearby communities partnering much today. I also wanted to cross industries, tourism, economic development, agriculture, businesses, retail shops. They haven't crossed paths in the past. They're like all in their own industry or in their own silo, right? And in creating these, I said, we've got to start working together. You see it, there's a lot of corridors working well together, but I wanted to capitalize on that. So we have that, and those one-day experiences really expose you to that. But as we're growing this, so what we saw last year, so Travel Iowa has partnered with us to help get this off the ground, which we are so thankful for because we could not do it otherwise. I'll say initially, I have had to personally invest a lot of money into getting this off the ground, but I have a vision of where it's headed, and I think the impact can be so significant that it can touch every community in Iowa and market them together as to who we are and really leverage all the things that you could do in these rural communities. So as we are growing this, last year, we had on Travel Iowa's website that you could request just the flyer. And it was just this like little, just like a postcard, it just had the information about the event on there, right? It was great. It's beautiful. All of our pieces are beautiful. Of course, we have great designers. But we sent out over 900 in 2 months. 900 people requested information about this. Mm-hmm. We could not track that any one of them actually came to this event. But people were obviously interested in the topic. So from 48 states, over 900 people requested information. This year, what we're doing is we're combining all other kind of I'll say natural resource ag focus tourism as part of it. So yes, the whole inside of the piece is all about evolution of the heartland and those 4 immersive tours that we're doing. But as you open up the piece, it gives you suggestions for seasonal and patch and orchard tours. So flower farms, lavender farms, pumpkin patches, a listing of those. We also have innovative ag tours. So businesses who allow those tours, like Kinsey Manufacturing and John Deere, those tours. We also have farm to table. So there's many opportunities for you to have food on a farm that was grown right there. We have a lot of places like that. Animal adventures is another one. So if you like interacting with, not necessarily like totally interacting with them, but bison or goats or sheep or llamas, yaks, ostriches, crazy things. And they're typical pigs and cattle. We have lots of different experiences that you can do there. And you can even stay overnight in a bin, a silo, a repurposed barn, or be on an actual working farm like New Day Dairy, and being able to see the dairy farm in operation at any time of the day and being able to see that. So those are the really cool nuggets of things that are happening all across our state, and we are here to market those together and really leveraging that. So as we look to the future of what Evolution of the Heartland is, yes, we have those immersive experiences, but it's also a unified marketing mechanism that it's this direct mail piece that will go out, but I also anticipate telling those personal stories, even having a podcast similar to what you're doing, telling the stories of those business owners, but also the quality of life that exists here. So that's why I love Building in a Small Town is phenomenal, perfect fit for this, because it's really telling those stories in more depth that people like to listen to. And hopefully through these podcasts, you can help transform people to a different place than where they're at today and help inspire them to pursue their journey and story, just like that turtle. Be inspired by the turtle and follow the way and trust that everything, you have all the tools that you need to pursue that.
And that it can be anywhere. It doesn't, it can be somewhere that you maybe weren't thinking or looking. Right. But so as you look at the immersive experiences, who is your target market? Like, who are you trying to get on those tours? I realize this is year 2, so like you're
3.
Okay, year 3.
Yep.
So you're super early into it,
yes.
And like I said, you sent out these flyers. Didn't necessarily get a trace through of the flyers to attendees. Like, who is your target market for that? Because I love the idea of it, and I just kind of go, okay, who are you trying to get on these tours though?
So. It's a wide variety because we're in the kind of initial stages. Where we're at today and who comes on it today is going to be different than who comes to them into the future.
1,000%.
Right.
But so that's where I'm. That's
as
what
we're
I'm saying.
growing,
and that's what I mean is like. It may not even, you may not have found it yet, but like ideally, what do you think as you think through, hey, here's my target market for this?
So today, we want more communities to know about this and to be inspired by this. We also want everyday people who need that extra push to consider, like, I would start a business or I have this idea, just like you when you first started Jim and Eat Crickets. If you were to first think about where you were at that point, but you needed to be inspired by others who have been there to, like, is Collins really the place that you should be, or should you be in Ames, right? To hear and learn from others, even though it's not in Collins, but to see, yes, this can happen. Yes, this is opportunity. Bread and butter, those are perfect people. But also right now, there's a lot of people who don't truly understand rural and don't truly understand agriculture. So right now, we are also having several, I'll say, influencer type people who we want to have participate in this to help tell that story, to see those stories, to get those actionable. So just like you meeting with me, you would meet many other people by going on one of these experiences and kind of the day-to-day conversations. What we hear is that by participating in this, even people who are already connected to agriculture had no idea this was happening in Iowa, even in their backyards. And so we're going to have this year a hydroponics tour. Very neat. I think another thing that's unique about Stanton is that they have their Swedish
their
teapot
or coffee pot or whatever.
And it's a tribute back to their Swedish heritage, right?
Yes.
In Manning, we have the house barn, right? And it's a tribute back to our heritage. But we think about, why did our ancestors first move here? What was it about it? And it was the opportunity to pursue the American dream. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're hoping to inspire. And so especially for that audience of, I want to pursue that no matter what walk of life I come from, where I started, what my journey has been. you can start that. People do believe in you here.
Yeah.
And really follow what our immigrants did and follow us back to Iowa. Maybe you started here, maybe you left. Now it's time to come back, because there's never been a better time to start a business or grow a business or move a business to Iowa than it is now. You can see all the top rankings. What are we number 6? Iowa is number 6 state to live in. I think it just came out this week.
In terms of quality of life, I think you're right.
Yes.
Okay, but so talk to me about, you kind of already alluded to it, of like you had to make significant personal investment into like getting this off of the ground and everything. Is this the first like major event sort of thing that you've done?
Yes,
like
yes and no. Yes, because we had done. When I worked for 4-H, I started many events at the state fair.
Right.
So the state fair was my playground, and started new events there.
Sure.
Were not as costly as doing something like this.
No.
But going back to real quick, I want to go back to the audience.
Yeah.
Also, people who are supporting the banking industry, the insurance industry, underwriting, especially when it comes to agriculture. I don't know about you, but getting somebody to believe in your business as crickets.
It was some fun back and forth between the underwriters and the agent, trying to just get the minds wrapped around what I was trying to do.
What the heck you were doing with crickets, right? But that same thing is happening all across the board, and it's like, take a leap of faith. Well, why would anybody build a cricket farm in Iowa when we have all this land? We could be doing all these things, right? So it's also those, why would I invest in it? Why would I underwrite it? And seeing, even though it's not the exact same thing, Iowa is evolving and changing, and we are at the hotbed of, you just told me about another example of another business that is phenomenal and really good ideas. This innovation is happening right here, but sometimes taking a leap of faith from a banking industry or insurance, especially, to actually underwrite those, especially when the economy is not super strong right now, that's a leap of faith. That's hard, but seeing this and exposing people to this, that's what also who we want to have coming on this, as well as other economic developers, other communities. But ultimately, right now we're still just like getting right outside of Iowa, because it costs a lot of money to advertise all over the country, right? Like, where's our audience? So we're taking low-hanging fruit in terms of Omaha's, Madison, Chicago-ish. It's a lot bigger market.
Minneapolis, Kansas City.
Yeah, Kansas City, and some of those kind of micropolitans that are within distance of there, because those people already kind of know that area. We have a lot of people looking at Iowa right now, though, in terms of living on the coast. There's a lot of bad political climate. There's financial issues. We're going to continue to see hard times for a little while, but Iowa has been able to overcome that and weather that for many years. And so that's where I want to see this grow to, that people they're hardworking people. They have not necessarily an Iowa tie, but the Iowa ethics, the Iowa morals and values, to come here and say, yes, I want to start my business here. I believe that this is the right environment. I want to inspire those people. We're not coming here because it's low income housing. We're not coming here because it's cheap cost of living. It's because you can have that quality of life and be super successful at the same time. And that's who we want to attract.
Yeah.
But getting there isn't super easy.
Right. Well, and that was, like I said, I love what you're doing with Evolution of the Heartland, and I love where you're going with it. But that was kind of my question with it, is like, who are you trying to get on these tours?
Yes.
And I totally get to that early into it, and as you grow it, you're still kind of figuring it out. And
yes.
and that will.
We're still early on.
Yeah. Well, and that will evolve as it goes too, as different partners come in and maybe take some of the financial burden and all of that kind of stuff. There's a lot of ways you can go with it, but that was just one of my questions that I definitely had. But so that first year,
we're going financial now. You're asking me financial.
Not financial.
Okay.
No, just that first year. As someone, if you listen to this podcast, I'm sorry, I keep bringing up this deadlift competition all the time. But I like the deadlift competition we put on in Collins. First year, I felt like I marketed it really well, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Ended up only having 7 people show up. It's one thing to spend all the money, spend all the time, all the stuff, and then
Yeah.
I feel a little disappointed when.
Yeah.
Did you kind of have?
Oh my gosh, I'm still there today. Okay,
so
I totally hear you. And
Yes.
everyone I talked to said, you can do this no less than 3 years because
Yes.
it will take a minimum of 3 years to get this off the ground. And I'm like,
And
okay, well, now here's year 3. Thank goodness I'm
Right,
here.
but
But
so
we're not done yet.
But that's where I wanted to go because, and that's one thing, it seems like everybody and their mother's starting an event. And like, if you just looked at social media, you're like, oh, this was a super successful event, like blah, blah, blah.
So many people there, FOMO. Yeah.
No, like the reality of the event space, events are hard. Like in-person events are difficult to pull off.
Yes.
They tend to be very expensive to put on. That's one thing people just don't understand either. So talk to me a little bit about the management of your expectations, because we are going into year 4 of our deadlift competition. We have lost money every single year. We saw exponential growth in year 3. That was, we went 7, 14, 57, and have had to cap it at 100 this year. That being said, if I don't go out and get sponsors, we're not going to make any money off of it.
Yep.
That's the other thing.
That's exactly where we're at.
Yes, and that's the thing is everybody thinks, here's your ticket. You're making all this money off of these tickets, right?
Yeah, no.
Doesn't even break even. Like, doesn't even break even.
No, it doesn't even touch it.
So I think that's really valuable for
Yes.
people to know, like, talk about that a little bit.
Yep. So in year 1, we had developed 12 tours. I paid for 12 tour buses to come, and I'm like, perfect. This is awesome. It's going to go gangbusters. This is awesome. We can handle all this. If you think about it, 12 tour buses times 50 people, whatever. I don't know. It's like 700 people. Like that's half the population of Manning. What in the hell was I thinking? Right?
I like
don't
the
know.
optimism. I like the optimism.
Oh, geez. Like somebody hit me upside the head. No, just kidding. Yeah. So we had to pare that down to 3 buses, which was fine.
Yeah.
We did the tours. We took it. So in year 1, I want to say it was 36 registered attendees, but then we also involved people from the community. We have ag ambassadors. So more people were involved, but those were locals. But that's also very important because a lot of times locals don't even understand outside of their bubble what's going on here, especially when we're talking innovative companies and practices and such. So 36 paid attendees year 1. Year 2, we had 76 paid attendees, but 220 total. Did I discount those to get people there? Absolutely. Did I give away some? Absolutely. I needed people there. I needed people on the tours, but we ran 3 buses, 6 tours in both years. So we have also realized, though, that if you pare that down, so we've figured out that people don't want to stay super late. Like, I love the part about, like, come celebrate our evening, like, social.
Yeah, but
get to know the computer,
like, I'm
other
ready
people,
to go home.
and they're ready to go home.
Day.
Yes, yes. And many of them drive, so that is also a misperception. You don't have to take the bus to get here. You can drive yourself to get here, and then drive yourself back home. But we still take the higher end buses, Windstar charter buses, to all of the tour sites because it's comfortable, it's easy. We don't want to be taking people on the school bus and kind of the usual. It's a very elevated experience when they come as part of that. And so 76, but total of 220 people involved. So we have, you have to think about what I'm trying to do here is very different in that our farmers and ag people are not talking necessarily like about economic development. So it's thinking about economic development differently. It's they're struggling with who's going to take over my farm or who's going to take over this business and how am I going to get employees? Well, guess what? If we're not focused on quality of life, if we're not focused on selling our town and tourism, if they don't try something first, they're never going to move here. I mean, very slim chance of you buying a product or service, especially if that means moving your entire family somewhere, if you don't experience it first. So this is we're in this for the long haul.
It's a long play.
It's a long play.
Yeah.
It is. But if we can utilize influencers and others helping us tell this story, we can get there faster. And so that's when this year I've said it's more about the media that comes around this than you actually attending this event. And so in tourism, they have what's called fam tours. And part of me is like, do I just do a fam tour and pay to have all these influencers come and they tell the story? No, I still want the people to experience it. But we can reach more people by utilizing people who are really good at media and telling the story from their own perspective. Because everybody has their own experience, and that's awesome. I have my story that I just told you, and that was my experience. But anybody else down the road, they have a different experience, and that's what's awesome. It's not the same story every time, I might connect with you, and somebody connects better with somebody else, and you'll gravitate to those people. And so as we looked at this year specifically, we said, let's narrow the number of people that can come, and really looked at how many people could each of these communities handle. So we keep it exclusive, because we are very committed that every single tour that we go on, we will not have more than 25 people. And really, the small size has been a huge blessing for us. Had we had 50 people, it wouldn't have been the immersive, hands-on, intimate experience that they would have had.
I think about some places that you would try to tour with 50 people. Like, it's almost impossible.
Right.
And you're, oof.
And you can't ask the questions, you can't get to know the people and all that. So I think that has been really eye-opening to us. So for Stanton, it's limited to 50 people. Manning and Coon Rapids are limited to 100. We'll have 2 buses, and DeWitt will have 3. And it's a little bit bigger community, and different things that we're doing there.
Sure.
But what we like about this is we can let the community drive that. So as we build this out, although we have a structure and a model, as we look to building this to the future, it's not going to be like RAGBRAI in that it'll all be during 1 week. The community will decide when is the best time to showcase the community. And so we are here to facilitate the event plan and the marketing side of it. The community is there to have the tours, to identify the people, to get local sponsorships, to add value from a local perspective, whatever kind of spin they want to put on it. So if they want to have an evening social, they can. If they want to have, a farmer or the cattlemen's or others grill for them for lunch, because that best showcases their community, because they don't have a restaurant that can accommodate it or a great caterer, make it yours. And that's what each one of these tours will kind of take on the flavor of each individual community and be a little bit different. So why would you go to one versus another? Why would you go to all 4? Because they're all very different communities, and different businesses and really cool experiences that you can't get otherwise. But the value in how we're marketing this now, so I've decided that, so for this to be sustainable, one, the cost to attend, we need to keep that high, because it has to be something that is of value to people. It's not like it's a free tour and anybody can come. I should also mention, it's only for adults. At this point, we're not doing kids. However, I can see into the future that this ties into a weekend event. You come for an immersive experience, or come back and do a family experience, maybe on a weekend, where you can have your family come and experience more of that. But
and you could tailor that completely differently, and
right,
different, separate.
But like I say, like, we've realized it's the marketing. Like, when we think about what do we do well, we understand rural, we understand the connections of rural and the challenges of rural, but we also are really good at marketing. So how can we help alleviate the cost of any one community taking on national exposure of Iowa, or of their community beyond Iowa to the world, essentially. They can't do it on their budgets, but we can when all of those start coming together and working together.
Sure. That. No, it makes sense. It's you're gonna have a lot of growing pains, I guess.
Oh yeah.
As you already know. But yeah, like I said, I did want to touch on that piece though of, like, it's events, especially, for some reason I feel like people have in their head, if you build it, they will come. And, like, it never is. I'm sorry. I don't care what you see on social media. I don't care what it is. But the way I look at it, and I sense that you probably have the same philosophy, it doesn't matter how many show up. What matters is that those that show up have such a remarkable freaking experience that they then go back and tell whoever.
So you mentioned Liesel that you interviewed not too long ago.
She shouted you out at the Iowa Rural Development Summit.
Oh,
she
and
said
I hated that I wasn't there.
She was like, you guys, if you haven't heard of Evolution of the Heartland, you all need to go look it up and go on the tours.
Yeah. So Liesel came the first year, and she's originally from Florida. And when she came, she was like, and I thought, I've lived in Iowa for a while, and she went through Leadership Iowa as well, and she was like, I thought I knew a lot about Iowa, and you just opened me up to a whole new experience. Like, I can't even believe what I didn't know, and that's the thing that we hear the most. Even people who know rural Iowa and agriculture and small towns and all the things, they're like, we had no clue this kind of thing was going on.
Yeah.
And we want to keep it that way.
Right.
Yeah. So
I think, again, you aren't going to have a shortage of opportunities for, there's going to be people interested. It's just.
Yeah, but getting people to commit, and I think employers are also cutting back in terms of allowing their staff, obviously at least we're past COVID because travel and business travel was not even a thing then.
Yes. But inflation and everything else has not. There's a lot of things that are headwinds, shall we say, at the moment to things like this.
Yes.
But,
I hope that eventually that our price can go down significantly. But getting this off the ground, is thank goodness for our sponsors and those who have believed in us and believed in the vision for it. Because I agree, it's not just these immersive events. It is everything else that goes around it that is really our goal. Mm-hmm. And so if it were to be that someday we don't do immersive events, maybe that's the case.
Yeah.
Or we just partner with community festivals and things like that, and to show them how do you make more of your community event. And it's just a piece of that. And Evolution of the Heartland becomes more of a marketing initiative that allows us to market these rural communities together.
Yeah.
So I encourage you to take a look at the website because, the things that we're including on there now, just like that direct mail piece, here are other opportunities of places we would recommend going. If you're trying to build a tour of Iowa and get to know what Iowa is all about, you can create your own plan and path and vacation.
Choose your own adventure.
Yes, choose your own adventure. Travel Iowa's website's really good with that as well. But if you go to evolutionoftheheartland.com, that's where you'll find all the information about the event and all the things that we're doing there.
And none of those events are sold out yet. No. Or are they? Okay.
Nope. We actually just went live May 1st.
That's what I thought. I was going to say registration just opened.
It just opened. The DeWitt event, because it comes first, early bird pricing. So it's $175 for early bird pricing. It goes up to $199 after that. That's June 15th. So it'll be coming here. It'll be here before we know it, if we know how the year's going the way it is. June 15th is when the early bird closes, and all registrations close about 10 days prior to each of the events.
Cool. So there's some time, there's some space. If there's one relatively close to you, maybe check that one out. Or, if there's one really far away, go
try somewhere new.
Yeah, I was going to say, see what happens.
But you don't have to take the bus to get to the location. So you can drive yourself. You can stay over the night before if it's too far away, things like that. But we'd love to show Iowa in a whole new light.
Yeah.
So it's been pretty cool. And, as I think about my business, I'm like, I get the question all the time, how do you do all the things? Well, I can't just leave ideas left. I mean, I can't just leave an idea lay, I got to figure out how to make it work. But I really see that this off the beaten path that we have done, the videos there, I think that's going to tie into Evolution of the Heartland some way, somehow. I think as this grows, that's where we're going to see that a lot more come to fruition through that marketing platform as well. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. Video is, I don't think video is going anywhere.
No. I think it's evolving because
1,000%.
before we would do trainings and everything, we would train on landscape. That's what people are looking at. Guess what? Everybody's on their phones. Short form vertical video. That's where it's at,
Yes.
And I think that'll continue to evolve. I don't know if you've played around with the new Apple. What is the VR system that Apple just came out with?
Yeah. Well, so interestingly, I was just in DC last week. Meta. I'm part of the Facebook leaders.
Yeah.
Anyways, so Meta.
And you went to DC for that?
Yeah. So
nice.
They fly us out once a year to go meet with policymakers and stuff. But they always do a demo, and they had their Ray-Ban augmented.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It's crazy, but it's you wear those glasses, and your whole computer screen and all the things are just here out in space.
Yeah.
And that's not too far. I mean, it's here. It's already here.
I think it is, but also I have an Oculus. There's a cricket farm that was built for me in the metaverse. I did a presentation in the metaverse. That was real weird. There's things to work out there, but yes, it is coming. But I think video is definitely. And so then at that point though, I don't know that vertical video is it anymore. I think
that's what I'm saying. I think it'll go back.
Yeah, it goes back to landscape.
I truly think it's going to go back.
I don't know. I'm kind of a landscape girly myself. Maybe it's just
For
the
sure.
YouTube in my life, but
right.
So
I agree. I'd prefer it because it's a lot bigger. When you look at your phone, I mean, vertical, yeah, it'll fill the whole thing, but you can see so much more when you open it up.
Well, and to a certain extent, like, yes, sizzle reels are definitely a thing. Like, people like sizzle reels of stuff, and for towns, it's a great option. But it's also, you look at, God, I can't think of what the first name of the kid is, like Sam something. He's like a 20-year-old bodybuilder that his growth on YouTube over the last year, you've probably never heard of him, but he's like 20 years old. He's a bodybuilder, exploded in popularity. And literally all he does is like these unedited vlogs of his daily life of like going to the gym, eating, like super low key, like not high production value or anything. He has like 20 something million followers. Like
what?
And so that's where I think that there's definitely like the high production sizzle reel, that kind of side. But also there is just the conversation, the low budget
authentic
conversation. Yeah.
Yep.
So
authentic,
figuring
natural.
out, which way to dance in both, if it makes sense. I don't know.
And from a development standpoint, I mean, obviously we know how to do any and all of those things. And so then we're shooting all of them, on one shoot. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, can we just make up our minds how we want to share all this out? Because right now we're creating all the platforms, all the different, sizes, shapes.
Yes.
However you want to make
and
the
that
content.
is perhaps, for businesses, for communities, for things like that, don't get overwhelmed by feeling like you have to do all of them. Even
correct.
Gary Vee lately has changed his tune, which I don't know if you've noticed that, but like Gary Vee used to be like, you need to be putting out like 300 pieces of content a day, and it's like, bro,
no way. Who has time for that?
You know what I mean?
That's
what he did. But he like very recently has shifted to being like, you know what? I don't think that's the case anymore. Yeah.
And I also think so. I help rural communities and these businesses really be realistic. Mm-hmm. So one of the influencers I follow, she was like super excited because she got 1 million views on one of her reels that she shared. 1 million views.
So did I on a sourdough reel that had nothing to do with anything.
Right. Okay. So that's super awesome. And did anybody buy anything from you for that?
This was on my like 214 main project / now building in a small town. I went from like 1,000 followers to like 4,000 like overnight. But it was because sourdough. Yeah, like it doesn't. Yeah,
because sourdough went crazy. Yes.
And it doesn't have much to do with this. That being said, it has now given me a larger audience, so to speak.
Which is great. But her point was, okay, although I got 1 million views, I didn't sell one thing from this. And although people saw it, they're not necessarily buying from me for that reason. So just because the numbers are big, don't think that that's actually better. Because what we're finding out is less people, more engaged. So engagement matters.
Yes.
How frequently they're connecting with you, that type of thing. That's what we're focused on. Obviously, to work with the algorithms, you need followers. You need people liking, engaging with the content. But especially when we're talking about rural towns, we don't need 1 million people seeing the content. We need, if we could not grow in Manning by 1 million people.
Right.
But if we had 10 new houses and 10 new families move to town.
That's massive.
That's massive. Mm-hmm. Massive. So we're not looking to grow huge. We don't want to grow huge. Mm-hmm. And initially when I started, they're like, why would you market rural Iowa? We like how we are. I'm sorry, but our businesses and main streets are not sustainable without people to work in those jobs. Even if we have online sales, even if our market is not right here, we still need people doing jobs. And I get that robotics and AI are helping us advance in other ways faster. We're still going to need people.
Yeah. Speaking of, thank you for bringing that up, because I had that in my mind of like wanting to ask you about that as you move forward. What do we think about AI in terms of, as you look at the marketing marketing landscape moving forward.
Yeah, we absolutely love it.
Okay,
love it.
I'm glad that you say that because I use ChatGPT for a lot of things.
Yeah, and sometimes I use ChatGPT, but I'm more of a Gemini person now because it's more connected to Google and more updated. So unless you pay for ChatGPT.
Recently I've heard somebody, I will cover crap. I was going to say it was one of my past interviewees.
I listened to that one.
Yeah. She said that she went to an AI training and everything, and she paid for the ChatGPT, and she said it's like night and day different. Night and day different.
So I haven't gone to the level of purchasing anything yet. It's probably on the horizon. But Gemini, I have found, it is searching. So if you're searching for research and research articles, so if you say you want this documented, because we don't want just fluff out there. We want to make sure that what we're saying is accurate and has relevance to it. So we could look at where does this information come from and is it credible? We work with hospitals. We're working with a lot of different clients on a lot of different industries. So for us, it has really allowed us to know things faster. You've got to know prompts. You've got to understand what to feed it. And if you feed it garbage, it's going to kick out garbage. So we have gotten a lot better at figuring out what to say. And I'll tell you, I've got, as you can probably imagine, I've got a lot of ideas and things flow, but I don't necessarily put them all in a cohesive package right away. It takes a little while to get it there. Writing a press release, writing SEO, right? Like anything that we have to do. That now I can just like throw up my idea
in bullet points and as specific as possible, and it kicks it out in beautiful. I mean, you need to do some edits, but like it's.
But nice. I can just do random thoughts, and I can just like add in random thoughts as I'm going there. And when I get it, I'm like, oh, I need it more from this angle, or I need this, just that, the other.
Reprompt it, and it'll give it to you. I know, it's beautiful.
Yes,
I love it.
I love it, and it makes it so much more polished, a lot faster. Like the amount of time it's saving me is crazy, and it's still my words, it's still my thoughts, it's still all of that. I have to craft it, and sometimes they're going to use crazy words that I wouldn't typically use, so you still have to refine it. It's not like you're going to take it exactly how it's out of there, but at least it gets you to the rough draft standpoint that you can go refine.
Yes.
And that saves so much time.
So I guess
so worth it.
What I'm saying and what I was asking but didn't directly ask you is you're not worried. Like, you don't view it as a threat to you and what you do.
The things I know and see, you can't replicate that.
Right.
The time and experience, if we just designed logos, if we just designed a promotional piece, if you know how to work it, go do it. If you know how to work Canva, go use it. By all means. That's not putting us out of business.
Right.
There's a lot more value there that you're not going to get from that. And I would encourage you, go into ChatGPT, look up why would people come to Collins? Why do people like small towns? Why would I move to rural Iowa? Look and read and see what it says, because it's scouring the internet. So when other people look that up and then change that prompt to how can I convince somebody to move to rural Iowa? It'll give you some good things. Right. It's fantastic. I couldn't have said it better, but we've got to utilize that.
It may not be 100% beautiful, polished piece, but it gives you a pretty good framework is what I've found. And I
think a big question right now, everybody's like, AI in Facebook and Meta and all this, like, I want it to go away, all that. But quite honestly, I can't ever remember what I'm looking for or whatever, and it gives you a better framework to kind of say, okay, this might be what you're looking for. Oh, that might help. It doesn't always work, but I think it's only going to get better.
Right.
AI has been around for a while. It's just now getting to the point that it is really fine and really worked, and that's why it's being adopted so much. It's only going to continue.
Right.
Even design things.
Yeah.
Design is already, some of the graphics we've actually used AI generated graphics, because although I'm a graphic designer by nature, I am not an artist. I can't draw for anything. Like, my stick people are terrible, but at least that way, I can utilize my thoughts and concepts of what I want, because I can't find it in Shutterstock or any of the stock imagery things that I would use. But now I can type that into AI and say, so we work with a solid waste company, and it was really windy, and all of people's garbage cans would fly away in the recycling bins. And so we typed that in. It generated out an image of a guy like holding on to his garbage can looking like it was going to fly away. It was so perfect. I'm like, it would have taken us hours to develop something like that, you
Right.
know. So it was really good to have that.
Clients
We've got to utilize the resources.
Right. Clients
Around
happy,
us.
you're happy. Like, you know, I
100%.
think it's good.
And if you have the time and the wherewithal and know-how, go do it. You know,
Yeah.
There's no shortage of people to help and organizations and businesses to help.
Right.
So, you know, we'll keep going at it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time. So we've been at it for 2 hours and 20 minutes already.
Holy bucket.
I know. Time flies when you're having fun. Yeah. So if people want to learn more about working with you, if they want to learn more about Evolution of the Heartland, the other 15 things that we didn't get time to talk about, like, where should they go?
Absolutely. I would say our Em3rge marketing website, so Em3rge marketing.com is our main marketing website for our primary business. I already told you evolutionoftheheartland.com for that one. And I haven't talked about it yet. I'll just put a quick plug in eventually here for ignitebethelight.com as well. We are on all social channels, platforms. Google us. We will come up. So remember, it's Em3rge marketing in terms of the URL, domain. So,
awesome.
Yeah, I just want to put a little plug in there. I did not talk about Ignite Be the Light, one of our other businesses. It is, I'll say, not totally on hold. You'll be seeing something come out from us later this year, but it is our faith-based portion of the business. I was seeing a lot of business development and professional development type of seminars and webinars. Nobody was talking about integrating faith into business, and I felt very strongly about that. And so we're in the process of developing a 3-part series devotional, as well as online platform and all of that. Initially, we have Foundation, which is a 30-day devotional and journal, and then we will have Purpose coming out later this year, and then our final one will be Ignite. As I've told you before, sometimes you got to pivot and take everything with a grain of salt and have a plan. So it's still there. I anticipate that coming in God's time. And so it costs a lot to get that done, to write a devotional, to do all that. And we have so many other things going on that are going really well. I said, you know what? When God wants this to happen, it will happen. I don't want to force it. And we've already sold 2,000 copies of Foundation. So that's amazing. Yes. But we've kind of taken a back seat in marketing that for right now. We have a beautiful website, beautiful content. Go out there. There are a lot of other people in that space doing a really good job with that. And 4 years ago when we started that wasn't the case. So, you know, it's still out there. People can find it. But I want to leave everyone with lean on your faith. Don't feel like you have to put that in your back pocket and hide it, but lean on your faith. If you're a business owner, you're gonna need it, and those who have been most successful are successful because of it. So have that belief. So,
and you can find those on social media too.
Yep, all the social media platforms as well.
Okay,
yep.
Wanted to make sure.
Yes.
Well, thank you for taking the time to sit down with me and have this chat.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you for all that you're doing. We need all of us. So let's partner together. A rising tide raises all boats, and we can't wait to do that for us in rural Iowa.
Heck yeah. All right. Thanks, guys.